right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Saturday night. That means it is time for the Weekly Dig. For anyone new to the stream, this is a live show where we dig into anime old and new. I'm Brent. These are my ridiculously awesome co-hosts. John. Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
And
Konnichiwa,
Steve.
everyone.
Say hi, Steve.
Hi, coming to you from the Wired. Not intentionally, but here I am.
Definitely. He's going to start chattering any minute.
Oh, that was so creepy. Oh my god.
Multiple personality disorder off to this.
I have some insights into that this week, but because we're going to start our dig tonight by analyzing episodes 7 through 8 of Serial Experiments Lain. Now, I took some notes about this. Actually, John and I happened to watch this together, and
nice.
To my surprise, I only took like half a page of notes total on these episodes. Partly because these episodes are really just kind of continuing on. They're really just kind of building plot-wise. There's not too much in terms of like crazy, weird new symbolism here. We'll get to that later in the show. Don't worry. But we start with episode 7, Society.
Yeah.
And we start with some interesting imagery. This whole coil of pipes and such, which I now realize, as of playing the Lain game last night, this is a reference to the PlayStation 1 game and the like homunculus creature that she's building in that game, which is hanging from like hanging from the ceiling, and looks very similar to this and has like wires and cables hanging off it. So this is imagery very much like that in the PlayStation 1. Yeah, Lain is actually building an artificial human in the Lain game. It's a trip.
Ah.
Yeah.
Is it named Tetsuo?
Unknown so far. It does have a name. We haven't gotten there yet. But we get Lain on the wire.
Big
This
boat
time.
face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we get Lain mucking about on the internet, and we get our first glimpse of crazy internet guy, which I know does not narrow it down.
I was gonna say,
I
don't
love
forget
him.
poor old broken Mika.
Ah, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. So.
No, she's just.
Yeah. So Mika looked in on Lain, and you're right. Mika is definitely. We've seen her start to break down, and she's not barely verbal at this point.
Well, after that experience in the hallway where she sees the other Mika and then the shadow Mika.
But remember,
it's like,
she walks away from that fine.
yeah, and I think that was because she was still in shock, and now it's just like she's just broken.
I don't think so, because she, her expression isn't shocked when she walks away. She's just, oh, okay, and she just turns and walks away. But
what do you think then led to this spot now where like she's so evidently shattered mentally?
Because as we've been seeing, she is being more and more affected by something.
Do you think it's because Lain has the wired persona and the actual Lain of the real world, and now that Mika doesn't have both parts? Do you think that maybe that's why it's an eventual degradation, and that she doesn't have that soul, because that would have been the soul? Maybe I don't know.
I think
Signal degradation.
I think she's being targeted by the Knights. I think that the Knights are clearly testing out the kids' system. It's why you see the Knights logo during her crazy dream. And I think it's driving her crazy. Because I think the Knights can't get to Lain. They can't get to her parents, because they're pregnant by Tachibana Labs. But I think Mika is vulnerable. And she's in the middle of all of this. And so the Knights are kind of trying to figure out what they can with Mika. But certainly, she's not having a great time.
No.
It should also be pointed out, if your teenage daughter was stumbling around like this, would you do something? Probably.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, when your other adoptive or other daughter, whatever she might be, goes into the kitchen to get something to drink, and she's babbling and talking to you, do you just sit at the table and stare straight off into space like a complete jerk? No.
And then you both turn around and just go.
And say nothing. Like, oh, okay. Well,
yep.
Good parenting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Parents. So yes. So we know things are going poorly here. And actually, I should say, if indeed Mika was the waitress at Siberia, that would also explain why she's kind of going nuts if the weirdness from Siberia is affecting her brain too. So I don't know if that's true, but interesting connection.
I would also imagine, we don't... Lain is not in a world of Wi-Fi and The Wired.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Lane's room, she does have things that are either somehow holographically projected above her, that they're in a space but not on a monitor. It would not shock me if you said Mika is like suffering the effects of what Lain is doing is irradiating everybody in the entire house.
Well, and
would shock me.
And more directly, we have hints, and we'll see more of this later in the show, about frequency resonances.
Yeah.
If all this stuff is sort of emanating out, not radiation specifically in the sense of like, mutation radiation, but radiation, in the sense of like electronic signals, absolutely, it could be screwing with Mika dramatically.
And when you're looking at like her Navi screens, all of them, you keep getting this pulsive kind of that kind of comes out almost like a radar pulse that is happening constantly on there. And it's like, okay, there are questions about whether exposure to that kind of like high and low frequency has a psychological effect.
Stay tuned. We will see more about that later. So then we get a couple of interesting sort of plot threads that start weaving in. We get crazy internet guy wandering around the streets with his thing.
I love that guy.
And this is also partly a play on, and I'm forgetting the name of the guy, but there was a guy like in the 90s who was who carried a video camera with him at all times and like was recording his entire life, and I think he was working at MIT. He also had these corded keyboard gloves where he could actually type. So he basically had a computer on him at all times, and he could like type with his corded keyboard. And it was all feeding into this hardware. And the idea was, he said, with electronics, I can record every second of my life and then have a record of that I can then play back and, have an external memory for my entire life. And he's kind of experimenting with that and playing around with that. And there was some folks kind of not having fun with that, but reporting on that and, talking about that. And to be clear, he said, this is very wild, but I'm experimenting with what that might look like in the future. And
I'm just trying to think of the family gathering where I show them 8 million hours of
exactly.
VHS cassettes, and here's the time I walked across the street.
Yeah.
Kill me, Bill. Kill me.
And then we cut to Pervy guy with his secretary.
Yeah, Basic Instinct.
Yeah, the Basic Instinct scene. That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
As the secretary comes in, it should be noted, and this is a thing I mentioned to John, she looks very much like the psychiatrist in the Lain game. I don't know if that's a connection.
She does. Yeah.
But it could just be, hey, character design. And also, frankly, it's long-haired Asian, right? Like, it's just a long-haired woman.
Right.
Yeah, but still, it's possible.
Well, the one thing I rewatched it again because between the notes you were taking, my slightly falling asleep in our conversation, I'm like, hey, I just probably better sit and watch this again. At one point, this woman gets up and walks across the screen, and damn if it doesn't look like, what is it, Makoto? The
Evangelion
lady.
Huh.
And I was just like, wait a minute, because the turn of her head and the way she proceeds forward, like that, reminded me of Makoto. I'm like, oh, like that's interesting.
Huh, interesting.
It's just probably character, just design.
Yeah.
Just that's a simple woman character doing thing.
You said Makoto. Ghost in the Shell or Evangelion?
Evangelion, sorry.
Evangelion. Okay, so Misato.
Misato.
Okay, gotcha. Sure, no problem. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know how I remember that name.
Yeah. But the way that Misato walks in like certain scenes, like she's going back to her car and stuff. It's that same kind of hedge, like tilt, same kind of hair movement, and I'm like, that's really weird. It must be just an archetype for like this kind of woman character.
And the short skirt.
Yeah.
You know, this is fairly similar outfit. Yeah, I can see that. Evangelion had come out 3 years earlier, so it was definitely fresh on the mind. So that would totally make sense.
They're stealing off of it.
Exactly. They were the last people to ever steal off Evangelion.
Exactly. Precisely.
Yes. And then we see, and I just noticed this. We cut to the guy's screen. I just noticed it's portrait mode. Which is a really cool thing. And again, this is a thing that we see every so often in technology is you can rotate your screen, and it's really awesome. Yeah. That was an occasional feature that some monitors had that nobody does anymore.
Yeah, it was an occasional feature, and I remember seeing him at the time, like, why would you pay that much to do that? Like, insane.
And to that point, that's kind of that's a clue, besides everything else, that he has the cash.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention his absurd view of Demon City Shinjuku down there. And so then we get Lain in class typing, and I want to see if I can see what the code is. Yep, so that is Lisp. So Lain, we now see in class, Lain is working on her phone, her personal navy, and she's actually in a coding window. And what's cool about this, and one of the reasons I got so involved in Lain, is because this is actually what a software development environment looks like. This is actually what coding looks like. This is a window. Those letters IDE, that is Integrated Development Environment, that's what it's called today when you're coding. Wow. So they got this right. And Lisp is a very niche language designed for artificial intelligence. Not designed for artificial intelligence, but often used in AI research and AI stuff and so forth. And why that's relevant is that this is not a beginner's programming language. This is not, Lain was learning Pascal in episode 1. She has moved way beyond that. A lot of programmers do not move off of their first programming language for a while. She has gone really far.
Well, also, I mean, as I pointed out when we were watching it, it's like, Lane's phone is far different than the original phone that Lane had.
She's got the little things on there.
Yeah, it's got like an antenna hookup, it's got a stylus hookup, and it's a wired stylus. At a point later, you see it has an entire ribbon cable bundle that goes with it. And when watching it the third time now, I still can't ascertain whether or not the black cabling that is coming out and looks like it's touching her leg, I cannot tell whether that is just the cabling for the stylus, or is that cabling for like another element, or is it literally somehow cabled into like an external battery. You know what I mean? Like, Lane's not wearing anything. She's just got her school uniform. But that cable, like for the power that she's drawing on this thing, I would almost think she'd need some kind of external power source to power this crap.
Which, lest we forget, in 1998, you did not have external battery packs for, your Palm Pilot. So she definitely would have had to rig that up. And as we see later in the screenshot, she's literally screwed it on. Like, she's bolted it onto the chassis.
Right. She's good at rigging things.
It's that did not come with it to plug in.
So was this about the time when I started getting because the episodes are blending a little bit together for me? Is this about the time when you hear the chalk on the board and then there's the shot of the classroom and you realize that there's nothing on the chalkboard, but you hear the teacher doing on the chalk, and I was just like going, what? No.
It's worth noting because in the past, in other shots, we do see stuff on the chalkboard. It is possible, just to get that out of the way, that she has erased the board and is starting something new, but that is not what we see here at the time. And it should be noted, this is the remastered version. So if this was a mistake, they had the chance to fix it and did not.
Well, going back to your earlier comment, where she's starting off with Pascal, and now she's so far advanced, what was written on the chalkboard to start with was where she started. Now Lain is beyond what they can write on that chalkboard. You know what I mean? It's like, so it might literally just be blank because there's no further information that Lain needs from that source. That she's doing it herself on her portable Navi. Bell Navi.
Yeah, totally. And Alice sees this and is concerned, of course. And so now we start seeing bits of other characters. We see Fat Guy from Paranoia Agent, who is in there. And this is, again, kind of a parody. There are a lot of these, NEETs, hikikomori, who are in their things, kind of making.
I have to get me a headband like that. Yeah. Bandana's useless. I can't look like that like this.
Exactly. More from the chat asks, when is Lain supposed to take place? The obvious answer: present day, present time.
Present time.
Yeah.
And it is meant to be in kind of an unspecified near future. To kind of really answer the question, but yeah, it's kind of like. And it's one of the things, and Kanaka, the writer, is very clear that he says, when he writes these things, they are about what's going on right now, and that's kind of I'm assuming the point of that, opening, is to say, this is not, just concerned about the future. This is concerned about today and what we're currently going through. Kanaka apologized for the fat programming and taco stereotype. Fair. And I mean, I didn't get offended by that because, you have other folks in the Knights organization who are clearly not that. So he's just one of many. And so it's like, okay. Cone did it too, so I can't be too depressed about it. But yeah. And also, and we talked about this before, there is a point at which you're trying to connect with an audience that doesn't understand all the details. You go with the stereotype. Right. But yeah. Exactly. And then you get one of the scenes, which, not to get into spoilers, is fairly important, where Alice actually sits down with Lain and says, "Are we okay?" Basically. Yeah. And it's a really sad scene. I remember watching this the first time and going, "Oh, wow, Alice really has it together." It's really nice for her to realize, wait, Alice has changed. Did I do something wrong? Has something changed? I need to address this. And I love how Alice kind of opens it out to say, have I pushed your boundaries too far? Was I kind of presumptuous about how social you wanted to be?
Yeah. You seem to be slipping again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
We thought it would make you happy if we included you and brought you along. It's like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alice has got a big heart. I mean,
she absolutely.
There's a lot of weird going on that would be. I mean, I don't think you'd solve the general problem. But
no.
As an individual part of this, you could have been like, "Wow, weird out."
Yeah,
guy.
exactly.
But she sticks in there.
Absolutely.
Lain really struggling with.
And I really love how Lain reacts to this because it is so I think true to the life of kind of a classic introvert response, where she's trying to get it out but she can't quite form the words, and she's just kind of holding it in but also trying to get it out, and it's wonderfully awkward in the way that real relationships actually are, which I really appreciated. That's something you normally see. And imagine Alice meeting Mika. You think this is weird?
Yeah. Here's my broken sister. How you doing?
Yeah.
Well, I think this also kind of, watching this made me feel like Alice is the one that is more emotionally mature.
Yeah, definitely.
And that it really feels, even though they're supposed to be the same grade, they're all together, it really super feels like Lain is almost along the lines emotionally of like an elementary schooler. She's not entirely functional at expressing what's going on with her. And Alice is like trying to reach out to her and to help her along, because that would be unusual for a high school girl, or at least a girl of their similar age, to be that emotionally unrefined, I guess, maybe?
Yeah.
Inexperienced.
Well, I mean...
emotionally inexperienced.
Yes, absolutely. And you see that in kind of their little group, you know. Alice is definitely kind of the emotional heart of the group. Reika is kind of is the sassy one. The Reika is the pretend adult, right? Yeah. She's the one who's like, oh, I'm mature. Julie is the still kind of the kid, but kind of joyfully so. She's just experiencing life and enjoying it. While Lain is
she's Bubbles.
Yeah, she's Bubbles, exactly. Oh, we need to have that image now. Wow, it's the Powerpuff Girls. It totally is.
That's the six. I was thinking Bubbles because she's got the twin tails.
Yeah.
Like, haha.
That's awesome. I know what I'll be posting to TikTok in a little while. Anyway, so that's absolutely, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. And as Morphle was saying, Alice is the one kind of keeping Lain in the real world, which is definitely true. Kind of her anchor, so to speak. And so then we could just get a bunch of internet stuff about the Knights, because it's really what it is. And we get Delivery Guy again. Kind of nice seeing the connection through.
Yeah.
With the bored housewife, and I love the interaction here because it's such a classic. And Kanaka's written a lot of stuff, and he has a big. There's a, we all know where this scene could have gone, and I love that he just addresses it just straight up. That he's kind of flirting with this bored housewife, and she's like, "Are you flirting with a bored housewife?" Like, no.
Okay, sort of.
Yeah.
I love that he goes, well, sort of.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you are or you aren't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a totally appropriate answer to feel out the audience. Is she receptive or not? She says, "Oh, you come on in." It's like, oh, good, it worked.
Exactly.
But that's the first. That's the first clue, though. That conversation is the first clue that you get for that about her.
Yeah.
Not being, the bored housewife. She goes, "Oh, do you think you can teach me about this?" Yeah,
she is so in control. Throughout this entire conversation, and afterwards you think, oh, it's kind of this funny thing. No, she was totally testing him, playing him the entire time. Nicely done. And of course, kid runs in and starts playing a game because that's what kids do. And also, again, I kind of appreciate the future forecasting of kids play video games all day. Pretty much. And she takes out
the entertainment center.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Let's bring that out.
Yeah.
That totally.
Massive.
That is.
I was actually a little jealous.
Radio, death.
Yeah.
CD player. I bet you the laser display.
And
in there
it should be pointed out. I just realized that is a Bose sound system. BOSE is written out in English on that in that screenshot. It's like, dang.
Somebody got a couple of dollars from sponsorship. Right?
Mm-hmm. And again, it's a clue. This is a tech-heavy household.
A money-capable household.
Yes. And then she gets a board with a very unusual image on it, one that we've seen before.
Wonderfully clearly placed in bubble wrap.
Yes, exactly.
Like, wow.
Boom.
That's amazing.
Nice, exactly. And then we get the flip, as I call it in Lain. This is the scene in the sequence where the show finally starts to come together in some way. And again, one thing I really appreciate where the Men in Black are like, all right, come with us. Like, we're going to actually have a thing here. You're actually going to meet somebody who knows something. And they take her, and again, I like the little symbolism here where she asks what's going on. And then I'm forgetting the name of the tall guy.
Carl.
Carl, thank you. He takes off the headgear, which again is kind of the let me look on you once with my own eyes. Exactly. And yeah, and it's very much this sort of vulnerability that he's showing her.
Yeah.
And then a 14-year-old girl gets into a car with two strange men. That's smart, Lain. Good job. Well done.
All based on the promise. Oh, we promise you no physical harm.
Yeah, it'll all be fine. Sure.
And we'll tell you what's going on after you get in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh.
Sure.
Or some candy.
And I mean,
get into our box, white box van.
Right.
Oh boy, this is not going to go well.
and again, kind of in fairness, if you will, not like one episode before, they had called her outside and distracted her so she wouldn't get caught in the explosion in her room. So she knows they're looking out for her on some level. But still.
Yeah, still weird. But did you notice that the hole's plugged up with all those wires?
Yes. Lane's been redecorating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drafty.
Yeah, the sort of Cthulhuoid monster that sort of latched onto the side of the...
It's her external heat sink.
Yeah, probably.
Also, the thought that occurred to me as I was watching this, that scene where you've got the chunk of stuff coming out of the side of the house, notice how all of our humming wires lead directly into her home?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like, there's the two connection points there, and it's like all the wires go there. And it's just like, wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
Most of the feed stuff, you have, like, the phone line part, and then the power line. You don't have, like, 6 power lines and then something else.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Yep. Lain needs power.
Yeah, and she's being actively provided it, not just, doing something on her own to, like, hook into it. No, somebody is actively making sure that those power lines are in there for her to do her thing.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's just Dad.
No. And so they drive... Go ahead.
I was just saying Gendo.
Yeah.
Take some tang with your power.
Yeah.
Oh.
And here's a good example. So when I first watched Lain, I was fairly new to anime, so I didn't know Japanese culture very well. I didn't know the urban symbolism, if you will. They take her to this seedy ass little part of town. I just got to say it. Like, this is not where you would expect the company that controls the internet to have an office. And it's one of the reasons why Lain is clearly freaked out, because this is, especially again, this is not where you take a young girl who's going to have a good time.
Why is there a video camera? No.
Right, exactly.
Well, this is the Shinbashi office.
Right,
so,
yes.
Right.
Tachibana Corporation, this is like this is where they send the people instead of, like, going to the quiet room because they've done something wrong.
Yep. Oh, I think we lost John there. There we go.
Am I still here?
Yep, you're back now.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Good.
How are you?
Fine now. Exactly. And in she goes. And future reference, we'll get back to this later. She's standing by a door, and she doesn't want to go in, and Carl just sort of gently pushes her in. Into this bare room with a guy in the center of it, with a computer. Very Lynchian, really.
Yeah.
But watching it now, I realize so clearly staged. This is set up for her. And again, looking at it now, this whole conversation is brilliant because she sees this weird thing and he goes, I can't get this computer working. It's not working right. And that intrigues Lain, and she comes over and she looks down and goes, yeah, I just really like this old Navi. And again, that is clearly like a 286 PC, right? Like we've all,
with the rotary phone.
With the rotary phone.
I'm just surprised they didn't have the modem cradle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The thing I thought was interesting too about this scene is the fact that, again, it's reds and oranges.
Yeah, the yellows in here are very strong.
You have a lot of this lighting is just that window. And it is in stark contrast to later in their conversation. Where, you know what I mean? It's like Lain is, moving forward to go see what this guy is inviting her to look at. So she's in that direction. It's like the shadows, everything, she is moving that direction to do this stuff. And it's like,
yeah. It should also be pointed out, like, there are definitely father elements in this, you know, the symbology around fathers and so forth. And there's definitely here too, and she's kind of looking towards the light, and also this sort of man who is not dissimilar to her father. So there's certainly some symbolism there too.
it's much more communicative than
very much so.
Yeah.
And so the reason I love this is that, again, if you got Lain coming in and you know who Lain is, Lain doesn't know who you are, how do you engage her? Right?
Yeah.
You don't ask her how she's doing, you don't ask her, but if you ask her about computers, she knows what to say there, and it's a way of drawing her in and starting the conversation. And it's just so smart. And then, you know, why don't you do it? Which is such a brilliant conversational tactic to get someone kind of off their guard, get them used to something. Now they're helping you. It's just all of the conversational tactics are being used here really smartly by this guy to get Lain doing stuff and talking to her. Whereupon he starts dropping the mic.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was such and it was like an instant switch like that. Because I, you know, like like you said, I'm watching this, and you know, he's very comforting. You know, it's almost like, you know, the doddering father who's just, I just can't get this to work. You know, can you
darn VCRs.
You know, can't you just tell me how to turn the timer on? Anyway, so
technology.
And so she's going into this, and then suddenly she's, like you say, the mic drop. She says, "Do you know who you are? Do you know your birthday? Do you know your father's birthday?" And it's this line of questioning, and it's just, and it's not like he's waiting for an answer. He's boom, 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 clearly pushing her into a corner because he's trying to evoke, I guess, some type of reaction.
Yeah.
And he
and
gets
he
it.
Yeah.
He gets it, and that's exactly what he was looking for. He was trying to figure it out.
Yep.
And he needed to see it for himself. And this is where I thought Carl was like, you know, had a pair on him when he's just like, when Lain is trying to get out of the room and he's not letting her, and she walks out and he grabs her arm. I'm like going, dude, do you know who you're grabbing?
Yeah, exactly.
And she's gonna mind wipe you right here.
Yeah, exactly.
And then notice the lighting shift in this.
Exactly. More yellow to blue. Just bam.
Yep.
Very clear. Yeah, the lights are out. And it should be pointed out, like, what we saw before, and I'm just going to kind of zap before so we can see it. The blinds are open. They are very clearly painted that the blinds are open, letting in all this light. When we cut back to this after the let's, you know, weirdo internet guy gets killed by the knights. I mean, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Very clearly.
He tripped and fell.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Accidental.
Yeah, totally. But we see the lights are on and the shutters are closed.
Yep.
In other words, going from the natural to the unnatural. You know,
it's a very sanitary, sanitized space.
So, again, going along with the logic, you know, if the Lain we all know and love is the human, we have now switched over into the internet Lain, the artificial one, with the artificial light, all that kind of stuff, very much shining down with the blue shift. And then Lain is just, okay, I'm out. And then we have the and again, one of those things I would not expect the show to do in episode 7 is just, okay, yeah, no, there are 2 lanes, just straight up, just definitely. The 2 lanes in one body, no question. Who starts to manifest here, and then again, you're watching this first time, you're like, okay, what is he going to do now? Like, now that she's manifested, he clearly has all the cards. He clearly knows what's going on. She decides to leave, and he lets her. And that's really interesting to me, because what it means is he has no power over her, right? Like, he can't keep her here. He can't do anything about her. He's just here to kind of prod her and push her and move her in some direction. But it's all up to her.
See, the feeling I got from him was the fact that he was, smarter than the rest of the room.
Yeah, true.
And that his breaking the other lane out and then letting her go is kind of like a force of chaos.
Okay.
He didn't let the other lane go because he could still physically restrain her. He could have Carl and Squiggy. The little short guys.
Carl and the short guy.
Carl the short guy. He could have that.
Coming this fall,
back.
NBC.
That's not a problem. You know what I mean?
Yep. Lost John again.
He's now forced the wall between Lane in the real world and Lane in the wire to break down as he as he notes. It's like, you've made it through. You've made the connection. And now he's releasing her to watch how the cards fall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I could do something physically to stop you, but, I'm going to sit back and just watch how this insanity develops here. Like, let's go.
Well, one of the things he keeps saying, though, is that how dangerous this is. And, and so when he lets her out of the room, he says, well, we're actually powerless. He actually says it. We're powerless. We can't really do anything, so we're just going to sit on the side, as he says, sit on the sidelines and kind of watch what's happening. And I'm thinking through this, thinking to myself, going, if this had been some other type of anime or whatever, that would mean that there's a sniper on the roof and Lane does something.
Lane turns to leave and Carl just snaps her neck.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now we don't have a problem.
Exactly.
Solution.
Yeah, so and Morphball asked in the chat, does Lane notice there are two lanes at this point? I don't think so. She's completely unaware of this split. And so
she is having a lot of anxiety about the possibility of it.
Yeah. And which we will see shortly. So here's where I have to sort of lay out my cards. I think that there are two lanes. There is, and I've said some of this before. I think there is the real physical lane where we see there is a lane in the wired that is a distinct individual, and I think what's happening in this scene is that the wired lane is syncing with the physical lane. He basically forged a connection between the two to cause that other version of Lane to kind of come out. Because when we see Lane in the internet walking around, she's definitely more aggressive. She's definitely more self-confident. But it's the way we all are on the internet. That sort of more self-confident thing. It's not this kind of dismissive, who the hell are you, I'm getting out thing. This is the Lane we saw in Siberia. So I think this is not another side of physical Lane. I think this is that version of Lane that we're kind of seeing impinging on the real world. But who knows? That's just my theory.
I was saying, we've talked about it over time. It's like, I still feel it's like a dissociative disorder, and that this is a personality characteristic that she's using to shield real Lane from what's going on, because the wired Lane is a much more proactive character and is a much more combative character when necessary. So when faced with this kind of intense grilling, he breaks down real world Lane, who is introverted, who is a fairly nondescript nice girl, with obviously an extreme interest in computers, because that extreme interest in computers allows her to be this different character in that world. He breaks her down, so that personality characteristic comes out to basically say, screw you, no, you're not doing this, I'm leaving. Because it's self-preservation.
And,
who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, and one of the things this show definitely deals with is the fact that, we are not just one personality, right? We present different parts of ourselves, different people. And this is a very Eastern thing, too, the idea that, there's a I forget the term for it, but there's the inner you, and then there's the faces that you give to other people.
The the id and the super.
Kokoro. There's a lot in here around that. So there are many lanes, right? Yeah. You know, who knows which one we're tapping into at this point. And then we get the mother sitting down with her son, just kind of tying off that little plot line of, oh yeah, she just killed a guy.
Teach me how to play this game.
Yeah.
I need to set up my alibi.
Exactly. All right.
Well, I can't hit the fire button after strangling that kid. My arms are all tired. What? Nothing?
Nothing.
My bad.
Yeah.
He tripped into a 1-inch puddle of water. That was
absolutely tragic.
Totally.
Yeah. All that equipment weighed him down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It happens, right? Every day. Happens every day.
Yeah. Happened to me last week, but I got better.
Yeah. There we go.
What?
So then we move into episode 2, which is rumors. Oh, rumors. Layer 08. Which brings us back to Taro. And we find that Lain and Taro are hanging out a little bit. And we get a bunch more of this stuff. And here's where I have to fast forward some things, because Lain travels from here to an adult site on the Wired to get information. Yeah. And again, and as you were saying before, we get a very different Lain here. We get a much more sort of dark, brooding, thoughtful, biting kind of a Lain that we saw before. But she's trying to figure out what the heck's going on with all the time with the kids and so forth and so on.
Which I thought was an interesting element for her to go to a more adult site.
Yeah.
To have a discussion about the 6th and 7th protocol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's like, that would be a very interesting, if you're trying to spy on what she's doing, that I would think would be a red flag. Be like, why would Lain be in this adult site? There's got to be like a weird reason versus like some kind of gaming site or something where it's like, somebody who's trying to monitor her would be like, oh, she's just, looking at cat videos. Oh, that's nothing. You know what I mean? Versus like, this seems like a very specific destination that would alert anybody who was trying to keep a track on her.
And see, I see it from kind of a different angle. I think if you are trying to meet to talk about something serious, an adult site is the perfect place to go where no one is going to assume you're talking about anything serious. Everyone's going to assume that this is just, people are cybering basically all the time. This is the equivalent of hanging out at a street corner, going to a cafe. This is just going to be one of billions of adult sites on the Wired. And so you can kind of safely go. And also, if you're trying to meet up with a serious adult, going to an adult site is a place where people go, oh, he's just hanging out there, whatever, right? It's a very understandable alibi for somebody to have to be there while they're trying to pass on information to somebody. But I don't know. That's an interesting question, Morph. It could not be. It might not be a real porn site. It could just be a site with adult site stuff on it. Certainly possible. It's. I mean,
we'll say at the given time.
Yeah. Oh, lost John for a second.
So you can go in the game space.
You're
fighting.
Yep, we're losing John a bit there. Give it a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there are definitely different sites, different possibilities there. John, you back?
Where am I going?
You were having me problems.
Yeah.
Problems I normally have.
Oh, weird.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
We lost you at what kind of site is it?
Oh, well, just in saying that at the time, I don't know that you would have like chat spaces in like an online game or any sort of immersive kind of gaming experience. It's like, because that's an easy
Oh, you
way.
might, but yeah. I hear you.
You know, nowadays, like, you could have a completely straight up legit serious conversation as an elf and a dwarf in like a tavern in some like small town in game space.
Well, that's been true for
knows
decades.
What's going on.
Yeah.
Well, is this? I mean, is it really a chat room? Is it really just the adult site? I mean, are they accessing an adult site, and that's just actually the windows that people are seeing? That's the protective veneer, so that they're actually not in a adult site, but it's the adult site that's shielding them from being viewed, so that there's no real chat room or anything. It just exists because when you're talking about Lain and the Wired, what we're seeing here is to me is a representation of code, and it's just not actual. There's Lain, there's people talking, but it's representation of code. So it could be the code behind, because as she's progressing with the computer languages and stuff, they're probably at a point where they're just like, okay, we're just gonna slip, literally. Here's the curtain. It's an adult site. Come on in. Okay, close it. Nobody can come in now. Here we are. Let's have this conversation.
Or it could even be, plussing that further. This could be representing. She is, emailing somebody at hotbabes.xxx. Right, and that's kind of the representation that this is a person working there. This is what he's doing at the time.
Right.
But this is just the conversation she's having with him.
But that's true, because
that's a great point, Mojo. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. It's like, given Lain's code advances and the discussion that she's not having the discussion with like an average noob. Like the kid, playing the sword game. She's talking with somebody else who is just as skilled as she is. So this could be the entire representation of just code to mask. That's not, Steve, you're absolutely. There is not an actual space. It's not a place that they've gone into. This is just they've coded up something to shield firewall from anybody else getting in there. It's like, easily been.
I also like Mojo Bone's point in the chat that people go to adult shops anonymously, right? That is very much a feature of being at an adult shop. So I think that's also kind of a thing they're pulling in here, that you kind of go there, you're trying not to be seen.
Yeah,
we definitely
don't look at me as I look at this point.
Exactly. That's a good call.
Kitty girls from another dimension. No,
and then we get the scene that broke my heart. That John, you were talking about before, where Lain comes in to grab her barley tea, and talk to her parents. And I don't know where I thought this scene was going. But it sure doesn't go the way I thought it would, because she asks them point blank, like somebody said, "You're not my real parents," and that's how they react. Yep, just blank stares.
Well, they're not doing anything. We see Mika again, and Mika is just she is descending into just non-functional behavior. She's like a wreck. Her parents aren't doing anything. It's not like they're reading the newspaper and watching TV. They're literally sitting silently at the kitchen or the dinner table and just staring. It's like, did somebody like pull the plug on y'all's personality that you're offline, you're sitting there until she asks that question, and then all you can do for that is turn around and stare at her. I'm like,
and actually, it's more of a glare than a stare.
Yeah, it is.
Miho has definitely got like some issue going on there. Yasuo is just, it's freaking weird.
So here's my theory. So we see later, and again, this is a little spoilery, that Yasuo's father at one point worked for Tachibana Labs, at least. If he knows that someone at Tachibana Labs has broken through to Lain and has kind of activated Lain, and that things have gotten, a lot deeper than they were before. And this is kind of, this is the aftermath of that discovery. I can totally imagine them being in this state of being like, crap, everything's going to heck, as she walks in. Who knows?
there's a redemptive moment where if they had come to that recognition and been like, crap, things are heading downhill fast, Mika's a disaster, and things were really getting out of control, you could have made a slight turn in the Titanic. You had addressed her. You know what I mean? Lain is actively reaching out in this moment. Oh, isn't it funny? Somebody said something really strange. If you had delivered some affirmation like, honey, don't believe that. Don't listen to what people say. It's okay. You're our daughter. Things are fine. You know, but you can make a tangible impact on the trajectory that Lain's taking. Neither one of them tries.
I would argue they can't. They are under orders not to. Speaking of the sniper, I think if they tried to do that, they would end up dead in a ditch somewhere.
So you think the Knights are got them in the crosshairs as well?
No, not the Knights. I think Tachibana Labs does.
Yeah.
I think they are acting out their parts in this drama, and you know, it is not their job to help Lain in that way. It is their job to give her a normal Japanese, you know, household with food and all those things on the table. That is it, and that is all they're doing.
There's a really interesting commitment to the bit, because even Carl, when she's trying to leave Tachibana Labs, has a moment said, "You're dangerous."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Carl is responsive.
Yes, absolutely.
Outside of the, I'm just supposed to stand here and the boss is talking to you and I'm just going to watch the door.
Totally.
It's like, wow. So Carl, the Men in Black dude, has like more of a slightly compassionate response to her than these hired family people who couldn't even muster up, well, that's not in our order index, so we'll sit here. Like,
the other question is how much of this is real? Right? Is this Lain imagining this scene to herself? Who knows? We've certainly seen that happen before.
Is this the part where everyone realizes the experiment failed?
Right. Yeah. Possible. Definitely possible.
Sitting quietly, realizing that, oh crap, we have to go back to square one.
Yeah.
Dispose of Lain,
bring out the next clone.
Right.
Bring out Kane.
It's like Fractali all around, all over again.
Yeah, there you go.
So, let's run this down a little bit. So, his father was with Tachibana Labs. Okay?
Her father,
her father.
Yeah.
Is with Tachibana Labs. And so they're going through the motions. We know this is a sham at this point, you know, kind of like more or less, even if it's imagined in her mind.
This it's either a sham or like, you know, critically criminal.
Right? Yeah. Mika is downgrading and degrading, or actually degrading her functions. Higher level functions are degrading, and Lain is confronted by the I'm assuming the leader of Tachibana, and the other Lain is pulled out, but the other Lain goes back to the Wired, and the physical Lain is back, and is the experiment? Is there disappointment because they're not seeing the Lain at the Wired?
No, I think that the disappointment is they're realizing that somebody else in Tachibana Labs has interfered.
It's right. Well, that's what I mean. It's like maybe the experiment failed because of somebody else's thing, but they were hoping to see the Lain of the Wired, and then they're angry that they're being shut out.
I can see that. Yeah.
Because he's invested, because he kind of knows what was going on at the very beginning, and he had the same wait and see kind of attitude as the leader did, and he's fully aware of you know the Men in Black out there. He has to be. I mean, the damn car is right there.
Yeah,
and you know, so they. What I'm trying to do is figure out the connection of why Mika is even there. And I have a feeling that Mika is a substitute Lain. If the Lain of this, if Lain, which is the primary subject of this experiment, fails, then it would go to Mika. But we've already seen Mika lose the one half, so Mika cannot continue on with the experiment, and as such, she's starting to degrade, and there's no reason to prop her up, so they just let her go. So, because Mika is another kid.
Another part of the kids program. Okay,
it's part of the kids program. So, maybe Mika's a failed lain, and now that they know that they don't have a backup, and they know now that somebody is interfering with this, or has decided that they're moving too slow and has taken over the project.
Yeah,
they're left with nothing. So everything they've done so far to whatever discovery that they are trying to do is they're done.
I like that theory. I think that the three are or were an actual family, and that Lain is being inserted into it. But the more you say that, the more it makes more sense that they were kind of assembled to serve as a family, There's certainly something going on. The way her parents act do feel to me like two people who care about each other in some way, trapped in a horrific experience, who are just kind of clinging to each other. So that doesn't seem like, oh, I'm just your coworker. But it also could be just that, maybe they liked each other at work and they decided to be, I don't know.
Well, that's interesting that you actually say that, because when they're sitting at the table, they're not sitting opposite. They're sitting together.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
That's so they don't have to look at each other. Which, as stupid as that sounds, that might actually be somewhat, because that would be a moment of like confrontation between the two of them.
Yeah.
Whereby they'd have to acknowledge what's going on versus like independently staring off, sitting next to each other.
And as Charles pointed out, this is a ubiquitous thing in any Japanese media. Is people never talk face to face. They always look, both look off into the sunset while they're talking. Right? They're always facing the same thing. So I don't know. I also just noticed something, and I don't know if this matters. Let's be honest. Everything matters. The stuff on the table looks fake. It looks like it's cutouts.
Yeah.
And particularly in that shot of Lain, and I know it's really hard to see, but like the picture in front of her looks like a Terry Gilliam cutout in front of her. And I don't know and I don't know if that's to imply that this scene isn't real, or if that's just because they had absolutely no money when they were making this show. And again, to be clear, like Lain has to pass behind that, so it is literally cut out, animation-wise. Obviously, they had to cut that out so she can move. So again, I don't know, but it's kind of an interesting little detail. Who knows? And so then we can move on to the meat of the episode. This episode, rumors, where poor Alice has to confront Lain about the rumors that is being spread around Alice. And we're going to get into some slightly more adult material here in this episode, so be aware. And we find out, and again, great writing here in terms of how Alice approaches this. She assumes Lain knows what's going on. She's not saying it directly because, of course, she doesn't want to say it out loud. But this nasty rumor has been being spread online about Alice having the hots for teacher. One of the teachers at their school. It is common for all girls' schools to have male and female teachers in Japan, which is a thing. And it has long been a controversy about that in Japan. That you get these, certainly guy teachers can have girls infatuated with them at schools, and it's sort of an open secret that happens a lot, and that sometimes that line gets crossed. So it's definitely playing off that kind of fear and that kind of thing in school. So Lain goes searching, does in a sense the exact wrong thing because she immediately goes on the internet again, which is exactly what Alice is afraid is going on. And we get one of the first, I think, moments in the show really dealing with, like, directly with this problem of the internet and of spreading misinformation. That it happens easily, and you can't stop it, and there's no beginning and end point to it. It's just a big, big mess.
Sorry for the sirens; they're out to get me.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, you're having some. Your video is a little bit frozen, but we hear you fine.
It's technical Saturday night.
Exactly. And she comes back to this wonderfully creepy moment where everyone is staring at her. And to be clear, personally, I think this isn't like what's happening with her parents. I think what happened here is that, everyone thinks that Lain is passing along information online. She comes into class and immediately gets on her Navi. And everyone's like, yep, we know it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so they're all staring at her. And obviously her teachers asked her a question. And so all eyes are on her.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more mundane creepiness. But definitely creepy. Yes, Morph Ball. Thank you. I'm sorry. Got to return. This is the Twitter scene. That is exactly what that is. That's Yep. Congratulations, Kanaka. And then and to that point, she then runs through the school and everyone's looking at her. Here's where I don't know if this is reality or fantasy, because we've all had this emotional experience,
right?
And that might be what's actually kind of bleeding over to Lain. I don't know.
Well, I think it's highly unlikely that, given the circumstances, everybody would happen to be in those positions to just all be staring at her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now if she was running down the hallway screaming, then yes, some doors might get open. People might be like, "What's going on here?"
Yep.
But just everybody happens to be standing around, and people in the courtyard outside all just happen to be looking. It's like, no, I think this is like the adolescent paranoia. Like, oh my god, everybody's looking at me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with Paul. It's very heavily implied the same with their parents, but I think plot-wise it's not. I think they're kind of contrasting there, but who knows? And then we get and the show keeps giving. And here's what we're talking about. So here's Lain's Navi. For those curious about what we're talking about, you can see all this stuff kind of bolted onto it, screwed onto it. This ribbon cable connected on, and these other cables going off of it. I agree. That does look like an extra power cable.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of cabling going on there.
Yep, absolutely. It's really interesting. And we were actually talking. I love this design of you have this sort of very Palm Pilot-esque thing with a slide-over panel that is a touch screen, which makes sense for the technology of the time, and that's kind of controlling what's on the regular screen. I'm kind of surprised there were no cell phones with this design.
Well, I was going to say, it's very, futuristic. Like, you guys were looking into the actual future versus, like, the dreamy future. It's like, damn,
It's
touch screens, all kinds of, internet capabilities.
Yeah.
Wow, if we could have had those kind of functions back when Lain came out, that would be neat.
It's the fascinating thing about the show is that it very much combines sort of late 90s technology of like the 286s with this very abstract symbolic internet.
Yeah. That came to be.
Yeah, it came to be. And then Lain creates a hole in reality. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. As she's sitting there, and we have the whole Gynax expanding ball of light destroying everything in its path. And again, is this all happening inside Lain's head? This is very adolescent. I don't know.
So you're saying, like, this is Lain's sort of, I'm crushing your head.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I'm going to set the world on fire and be, like, fire starter.
And which is very much what this looks like. Absolutely. Very fire starter. It would be interesting to see later on if there are any, images of can you see out a window to the burning husk of a storage shed somewhere? I don't know.
Or like some big disc shimmering portal thing sitting in the middle of everywhere. Hey, that portal wasn't there before lunch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we get the resolution to the whole thing, where we cut to Alice, and the teacher. And boy, this creeped me out the first time I saw it. So I was like, oh, no, that is actually a thing that's happening. And that is totally a thing that Alice is complicit with. And then you realize that Alice is having a moment. Yeah, she's imagining things.
She's aspiring.
She's aspiring
to a situation.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Well, Kanaka said the scene was very difficult to get greenlit. I can imagine that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Alice's hand has gone somewhere.
To another dimension.
Yeah. And then she discovers laying on her bed, watching this and giggling the entire time.
Which honestly, if one of you two, I turn around and you were like standing in my house, I'd be like,
I'd be like, John wants some malt
and like, literally for what's going on, Alice is panicked
Yeah.
about what she's doing. She's not paying attention to the fact that Lane's in her room.
Mm-hmm.
Lane never walks through the door.
Mm-hmm.
Lane's just quietly sitting watching her.
Yep.
She notes, you're sitting quietly and watching me. It's like, dude, that's not the mental part we gotta like wrap our skull around. It's like, back away from your embarrassment and let's talk about the problem here.
Well, actually, watching this awkward scene, which is very awkward because at first I'm like going, okay, well, the thing with the teacher is creepy. Oh, there we are. Okay, you know, and then going into that, and then and then there's Lane sitting on the bed, and I was thinking, again like that, I was just like going, I would not if I were Alice, I would not be at that moment. Any thought about being caught in the act is gone because I was like, how the F did you get in here? So I don't think that was real.
Oh.
You think this is her internet fantasy? And it's
yes, I think she is online with the teacher.
Oh.
And Lain is peering in onto the conversation,
that
and
makes tremendous sense.
Totally
and Lain allows herself to be seen on the internet.
Yeah.
Spying in on Alice and the teacher having this conversation.
Because I was noticing that this does have the feel of a lot of the other scenes where folks kind of are in this sort of liminal space where they're not quite reacting the normal way, which is normally when like technology is involved and so forth and so on, and obviously like the wires, frequency or whatever is messing with their brains. But I think that totally makes sense, especially because in the previous scene it's happening in her room. So I think it's just, we're lowering the imagination a little bit, but we're still kind of in that same scenario.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, that
totally
makes
works.
absolute sense to not
That's great.
react like how the fuck you get in here. And then that comment subsequently about sitting there quietly is like, Lain is cracked into whatever their conversation is and has been sitting there quietly as they're streaming along their textual adventure.
Yeah. And it could be, if we want to get a little less creepy, it's also possible she's like telling this to a friend, right? Like she's talking about her fantasies to somebody. She's posting a story online or something.
Sure.
A fanfic.
Fanfic, exactly.
I mean, at the time, it would be easy
totally
to like throw a worm down and grab some doc file from somebody's computer and then read their fanfic.
Yeah.
That could easily be too, but it definitely makes it much more sensible. This is all a virtual element that she's intruding on, not the necessarily physical space.
Although, just wait. Oh boy, but yeah, and I love that. And then we get the the horrific but very effective transition between Alice, horrified and distressed, and Lain horrified and distressed in her own bed, for completely different reasons. Because Lain has no idea what's going on. She's not part of any of this, but she knows that Alice is freaking out. And one could argue that if there are multiple things going on in her head right now, Lain may have an inkling that her other self is doing this. Which would definitely freak her out.
And I liked the lightning on the wires as it's going, sort of shooting around like.
Yep, totally.
Well, isn't that the point where she does reach out to Alice and she looks for Alice?
I don't think so. Because this is the point where Lain confronts herself.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Nakamura's directing is out of the park on this one. Because Lain literally just starts throttling herself, and
committing suicide.
Yeah, but one of my favorite lines in the entire show, especially the delivery by Lain's English voice actress, is just that completely crazy. I'm committing suicide. It's just great. Very, very creepy, and gets to this point of if there are multiple me's floating around, like you can't just kill one part of me. That just doesn't work. And so God shows up.
To make things better,
Yeah, exactly.
God shows up. Holy crap.
Yeah. So clearly Lane's having some issues.
Really.
Chattering dolls.
You see, that's where I think that there's some. You could argue that those are the elements of Lain stretched out across the plane there.
Yeah,
and that those are the different characteristic elements of her.
Yeah,
different
totally.
Personalities.
Totally.
And then God.
For
reasons.
Yeah. And so this individual who calls itself God begins to speak to her out of this amorphous, liquid metal thing floating in there. And I remember seeing something, and I may be wrong with this, where they said they wanted something that just symbolized complete abstraction. What is the least, what is the most abstract thing we can possibly think of that is still physically existent, and just kind of an amorphous blob was what they came up with. But again, there's obviously stuff around this, and there are various places I could go with that, which I will not right now. I agree, Morph, that this is also representing the rumors, quite literally. The rumors spreading to all these different people, possibly through the Lane of the Wire. And so Lain she does the thing. She decides to use her powers kind of consciously for the first time, and we get deleting thrown on the screen. And again, it should be pointed out, this is the original. This is not they put this in English on the original version, partly because English is the original language of the internet and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that is a thing that's happening, so that Lain can show up. And suddenly, or Lain can go to school and everything's fine.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Not quite. Because once everything looks great,
it's like a fanfic. It's the fine if you dream it that it's fine. It's not the reality that it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And yeah,
wavy.
No. Because Lain bifurcates. And we see two different versions of Lain. Now, I'm still a little unclear on... Well, I'm not unclear. I think there are multiple different interpretations of this scene. Imagine that.
No.
Yeah. Personally, I think this is Lain's own imagining. I think this is Lain projecting what's going to happen in the future, and she's kind of looking at herself and how this scene would play out. Much like the earlier scene with Mika. That this is kind of another version of her that she's kind of observing in the real world and imagine what's going on.
Idealized what would happen with all the crew.
Yeah, exactly. So the Morph is saying, even if you delete other people's memories, you yourself still remember, which is what this scene represents. Yeah. So this problem of even if she deletes everyone else's memories, she still knows what happens, and that doesn't fully solve the problem because you still have the guilt.
And then that lane.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, right, there are multiple me's. That's a problem. Show up in the scene, but again, it could be many things. It could be literally happening, physically happening. I don't know.
Somebody just needs to go unplug her modem.
Right, exactly. Yes.
So many things.
Go play outside.
With real people, not with duplicates of you. Don't do that. Stay away from Siberia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then Lain fades away, and again, this is why I think it's kind of like that earlier scene where she's just, it's different versions of herself kind of imagining things, but who knows?
Well, it reminded me of the scene with Mika.
Mm-hmm.
When Mika saw herself disappear, and one side was fine with it and the other was not.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looked like to me, and at first I was just trying to figure out if this is going to be the real world Lain or if this is the wired Lain.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just delete it on the wire, then it doesn't mean anything because it's still happening in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's the real world Lain, then what that means is that the body is still there, but the Lain that is the original, we'll call her original Lain, is now taking the back seat, and now the Lain of the wired is now in control, driving the car.
Yeah.
And she's telling her that, herself that.
Right.
This me, the more aggressive me, is grabbing Alice by the arm.
Yep.
And we're going off, and we're going to do the things that you've always wanted to do, but never wanted to do.
Yep.
At the same time, and so bye-bye. I'm in charge now.
Yep.
So I think the Lain of the wired now is in control.
It's ascendant.
Yes, ascendant. Whereas before she just pops in and pops out. Now she's just like, oh, thank you for deleting these memories because that means that I can come in and sneak in and just here I am now. And
it's that fundamental problem as Morph is saying in the chat. Like it's I keep pointing over here. It's down there. That you have Lain is literally bifurcating her reality. She is setting up this. Everyone else now thinks this thing. I know it's not true, and so now I have to create two different versions of myself: the external one and the internal one, and that's not great psychologically, as we all know.
No, it's not. Is it, Steve? Why no? No.
I liked the fade scene because it felt like there is a Lain that we are watching fade away in the process as the wired Lain is ascendant, as trying to tinker with the reality of deleting things to reset stuff. It's almost like the act of utilizing whatever power she has to do that has chipped away at the core Lain that there is. So as you're seeing her fading, it's like there's a cost to what she's doing, and that is slowly eliminating her as the Lain in the real world. Yeah,
she's lost her innocence.
Yeah,
in some fundamental way. And again, what I like is we cut back to her her real physical self, and this is clearly not Lain of the Wired here. Like there's loss. There's she's crying a little bit. She's clearly conflicted, but I completely agree that like she's lost something. She's not just the pure innocent oh no girl that we saw before. Because actions have consequences. Imagine that. And we get this
the law of equivalent exchange.
Yeah. Not this show. And we get this one of the wonderful iconic scene of all the stuff floating around Lain. And FYI, this is one of the scenes that will let you know if you're watching the remaster or the original version. In the original version, this is basically just little blue screens and a little bit of glowing stuff around there. You cannot see any of the other stuff in the scene. The contrast was off. So it was just kind of blackness. And I love how much more this scene communicates with just all of the sea of wires and all this stuff going on around her. It still has the same isolation to it, but it adds so much more to it. So really
in her technological cocoon.
Yes, exactly, which is precisely the end credits as well. So yes, so stuff's happened. Definitely.
It was just a boring episode. Nothing really happened.
And it's interesting because early on in the show, you know, I think one of the reasons this episode resonates so much is because at this point we've had enough of these characters that it you know, early on in the show we're still kind of getting a sense for everybody, but by this point this really puts you through the emotional ringer. In a way that weird stuff is happening in the early episodes. You know, guy puts a gun to his mouth, but that doesn't have the impact of just, you know, Lain betraying Alice in this episode.
Right.
It's great. Yeah, exactly, Morph. Hey man, you can think a certain way, but I'm not allowed to say it because it would get you in trouble. You know, not relevant at all these days. So. Anyway, so yeah, that will do it. So we're going to take a quick break for just a few minutes. Actually, before we do that, hold on. Any other thoughts you guys have about these two episodes that you wanted to get across?
I need therapy.
It just keeps delivering.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think the episode 8 was the turn point where I finally feel like, okay, mystery, think, dun 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 dun, and this is like, to me, the first action episode, wherein that things are, you know, now that everything's set up, it feels like the dominoes are now going to start falling.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You're right. Cool. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back to talk about some more modern anime and the latest anime news. We will be right back. And we're back. Welcome back, everyone.
Konbanwa again.
Hello.
Let's take a moment, a little breather, to talk about Hobby Hopper.
Yes.
Every month, members of our community choose a hobby they want to explore that month. Folks in chat, if you're exploring a hobby, please let us know your progress. As for us, John, I know you were doing some sewing recently.
Yes.
Have you continued that? How's that going?
I actually suspended that for the con time, and
Fair.
I'm intensely disappointed that I did not take you up on your little more portable sewing machine.
Oh yeah.
Ah.
That's right.
I should have tried to do
Yeah, that's right. We're going to do that. Yeah, just completely forgot.
I think I could do it with my fashion mate, but the problem is my con bag is dual density, like canvas.
Mm-hmm.
So my sewing it, I'm like having to hold it, by hand. You can kind of hold it and adjust it a little bit better.
Right.
Where I'm not entirely sure if I ran it with the fashion mate that it would get through the dual canvas. Plus, if you don't like heat up the patch to get the wax on the back to settle, you're literally sewing through 2 layers of canvas and hard wax, and then whatever the patches in itself. And I'm pretty sure my fashion mate's not designed to do that. So I put that on the back burner until I can get my thimble out again and spend some time going through sewing.
Yeah, that's what I have to do with my patches, is just hand sewing. Yeah.
I'd like to. I mean, I no longer have an iron because of circumstances. That at some point in time, when I really feel like dealing with Walmart, I gotta drive down to Walmart, buy an iron, because that will add tremendously the stuff I'm sewed on. If I could just, iron it a little bit, that'll be the extra part that'll keep it on there. So I'll get that.
Okay. Fair enough. Steve, how goes geocaching?
It took a backseat.
Sure.
Just like John, because world life, expensive things, kind of jump in. So I had to do things more inside, more that kind of thing. So knocked out a short fiction, cyberpunk fiction.
Nice.
So and very just. It's almost there. I'll post it later. I'll post it later. But the other thing that I did do that I started doing, because Gen Con's coming around, and I'm sort of kind of just getting my head back into that gear space, of gaming and things like that. So I wanted to get the
Oh, nice!
Because I still have my really, really, really old one, so I haven't seen actually the new stuff, and I'm actually going to the library tomorrow to pick up the DM and players guide.
Okay, cool.
But I picked this up because like I said, I want to kind of get back into it because I know the rules are slightly different. And like that. And so what I started doing actually 2 days ago was just to do it, is throwing together a little adventure, because I haven't done one in probably about 20 years. And I think I said something about this before, wanting to do it, and remarking, John, on your love of that show, Killing Slimes for 300 Years or something like that, right? So it's going to be a slime-based adventure.
Okay,
nice.
Cool.
So it's very easy. Like I said, it's going to be relatively simple and something
with
like
edgy
that.
options.
No.
Oh.
No edgy
No.
options. No. Actually, unless you
another moment of the high road. We're taking the high road. Very good.
Rule 34 does not exist in this universe. So,
not that you're aware of yet.
Oh, not yet. Yeah. As soon as I
Steve
posted,
of the Wired.
So I'm putting this together, and I've it's made for like the first levels 1 through 5 kind of thing. So this is just something nice and simple, and it is a dungeon. It is a dungeon. You have your build up at a little inn, and then you go into the dungeon and you deal with all the slimes, ogre jellies, and green slimes, and
classic.
There is a gelatinous cube.
Okay, good.
We'll come across it. Maybe not. You'll see.
Okay.
So you see a floating coin moving down the hallway. You can run. So those kinds of things. And so I'm kind of actually having fun with it, and kind of relearning some of the new. I mean, it's not massively different.
Sure.
But there's the ways that it's being presented is a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of getting into the flow of that. And I think I told you this, Brent. I got my badge.
For Gen Con?
Yeah,
nice.
Gen Con.
Yep.
I got my badge
Nice.
yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And day before yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the little sheet in there, and I was thinking about something you always say about Otakon, which is everyone else can do it, why can't they? And it's on the badge. It's got a little barcode on there, so whatever events you sign up for, you just show up and they, zap your little barcode, and the barcode will tell them, yes, this is Steve Gilhart, and he's supposed to be at this event, and you walk in. So, it's kind of neat when you have, and this will be like the first time I've gone to a con where they actually had tickets to particular events.
Yeah, all events ticketed.
Things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wish they had this when Yoko Kono showed up at Otakon, because everyone got that special little badge, but you still had to wait in line for or it was Sunday, and I think I was in line for like 2.5 hours just to get a seat. And I already had the badge. I had already signed up and everything. So I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to work. So I'm looking forward to it.
So you don't just badge in the door and then go wherever you go?
Oh, you can, but
pretty much, yeah.
You can, but you still have to have tickets for the events you're going to. You still have to pre-sign up for the events you're going to.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. You can also get generic tickets, so you'll get so I'll often get 10 generic tickets, and then show up and say, "Hi, I didn't sign up for this. Here's some generic tickets." And the thing is, Gen Con is a gaming-focused con, so it's primarily about events where if you're running a session, you can't just have 5 random people show up. You want to know, I have 5 people showing up or whatever. And so people will pre-register and say, okay, I'm coming, whatever. But then if someone wants to come up and say, hi, I have some spare tickets, will you let me in? That's fine. You can say yes or no. And then for other events, obviously, that's really nice, by the way, for 18 plus stuff.
Yeah.
Because they just scan your thing. And if you were able to sign up for that, your birthday is in their system and you were able to sign up for that event, and so they scan it and they know you're 18 plus and you walk in.
And again, you don't have to wait 20 hours in a line to get a little thing on Unlike someone like me.
I wondered why the Otakon had a little QR badge on the back of it that nobody touched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So cool.
So looking forward.
Absolutely cool. I got my Gen Con badge as well, so we're all good on that.
Nice.
Hallelujah.
If I hadn't shut out in the vacation department, I would have been
I have been reading this week.
I'm saving for Japan. Reading?
Yes.
Manga or like manga?
Novels. No, like books. Although sort of manga adjacent, I've been reading the Boogie Pop novels.
Oh.
Yeah. So, don't let this scare you.
Holy cow.
This is 3 books in 1. So, Seven Seas had this problem. They committed publicly to publishing all of the Boogie Pop novels, which there are like a dozen or so. They're all light novels. And then they published like 3, and they all sold abysmally. Like really, really badly. So badly that they were like, we can't do this. Like, financially, this will bankrupt our company. So they had to renege, but they've since been releasing them in omnibuses, and that seems to be going fine. So this is novels 4 through 6 of the Boogie Pop franchise. And so I got through 2 of these, 2 of the novels inside here, so the 2/3 of this. For those not familiar, the Boogie Pop franchise is originally light novels, 2 anime series, and a live-action movie. Every novel is its own self-contained story in the universe, in which 2 characters always appear, Boogie Pop and Nagi Kirima. And so they are kind of the central thread running through the Boogie Pop storyline and the Boogie Pop universe. But each novel has its own set of characters, which is cool. But also, other characters from previous novels will either show up or be referenced in certain novels. So, you'll be reading along, and they'll somebody will make a phone call to somebody like, "Oh, that's the guy from the other novel. Gotcha." That kind of things happen, which is really cool. A lot of little threads going on. And so these are the first one is about a teenage boy who is reserving a karaoke room with cash, as he kind of reveals to the reader that he stopped going to school a year ago and ran away from home at the same time. You're like, okay, that's interesting. And he's reserving the karaoke room because that's where the six of them can get on with their business undisturbed. So he goes in, and other teenagers start coming in, and it's kind of a normal sort of conversational thing. One of them comes in with a big duffel bag, and they go, "Man," the protagonist goes, "Man, I don't know how you can walk around with that." And she goes, "It's okay, nobody knows what's inside, and I can't hide it the way you guys can." Sets it down, zips it open to reveal $120,000 in cash.
Sure.
Then another boy comes in and says, "Well, it started happening again." Takes off his shirt to reveal a stigmata on his chest. And the protagonist mentions that there are 3 other boys and 2 girls in the room. None of them even react to this noticeably, but that's okay because they're not really human anymore anyway. And that's the kind of thing Kodono does, is all of this makes sense, all of it comes together, but he does such a great job of pulling you in with all these odd little details and think something weird's going on here. So it's basically, so that first novel is, not getting into spoilers, it's six teenagers, all of whom have mild supernatural powers, and are trying to do some good with them. Trying to do something with those powers. It's stuff like one guy can look into somebody else's eyes and occasionally will see reflected in them somebody that other person will meet in the future.
Okay.
But what do you do with that? Right? Okay, you know that information. What good can you do with that? So they're all kind of trying to, triangulate their powers together to try to maybe stop a car accident or something like that with these powers. And they're all hanging out doing that. And of course, things get complicated. It goes places. I'll put it that way. But that's the kind of story you get there. Very much kind of supernatural thriller, kind of horror elements to it. Really fun, really interesting, and just really enjoyable. Kodono does a great job of pulling you along with the story and having things happen. You're going, wow, that's weird. And it's grounded enough to where, supernatural things happen, but there's some kind of explanation for things. Kind of everything does get kind of tied up at the end in some way after half the cast has died. Not all the time, but that there can be a body count at the end of these novels often, as folks go into.
So he was looking in some dude's eye, trying to get a reflection, and that's when he got an ice pick.
Yeah.
It's when he was standing in the middle of an intersection and truck couldn't show up.
Truck.
I've also been reading this. This is the Golant's anthology of they don't say it very well. The Golant's book of South Asian science fiction. Pardon me. So it's India, as in the subcontinent.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay.
Science fiction. So all short stories. It's really, I'm about halfway through. It's hit or miss because a lot of it is dealing with cultural issues and cultural mores and politics that just go way over my head. right? Where this is about some racial tension that goes back 50 years. I don't have the context to understand why this would have the emotional power for people. But then you'll also have people who are like, wow. One of the stories, which unfortunately doesn't, it kind of just ends, but the premise is combine Westworld with the Holocaust Museum.
Oh, no.
What?
So they've set up a park where you can, and not the Holocaust specifically, but it's about Indian independence. So you can go through an experience like what people went through during the Indian independence, mob violence, all that kind of stuff being reenacted by robots and so forth.
No.
As a way of kind of making history come alive, literally.
No.
Wow.
It's like
Not
Robot
from
Gandhi.
Westworld.
and
God.
it's a great
Robot
premise.
Gandhi turns into a Gundam. Oh, no. No. No on
Yeah,
this one.
and I should point out it is not the same plot as
Right.
Westworld.
Right.
They don't all go crazy, but it is if you had that technology, somebody would do that. They would set up a cultural preservation thing to kind of lay out and reenact all that stuff, and have people go through those experiences. It's like, wow, yep, whoa.
Okay.
Why not just do? Oh. that makes watching Butt Attack Punisher Gatomon R this past week at 5:03
Gotemon.
at 5:03 a.m. I was just like, I don't know. It's one of those things where you're just like up at 5:03 a.m. and you're either half tired or you're half drunk or maybe you're both, as I was saying before, and you just kind of watch this thing and it's just like this horror show of nonsense. It was good, but it was just like still a big no. And I'm just thinking of this Indian mob violence. Yeah, let's make a theme park out of this.
Exactly.
Hey kids, you okay? Stop, everyone. Just if you're good, I'll take you to the Holocaust Museum, live action. You can actually play a part of the. No, we're not going to go there.
No, yeah.
So,
Now, how'd you hear about this anthology of
yeah.
Southeast Asian stories?
Amazon recommendation.
Really?
Yeah, just buy enough stuff on Amazon and they know what you like. And I just stumbled across it. I think that's where it was. I was a couple of years ago, so it's a little out of date. It's a couple of years old. But I was like, yes, I am curious about that. I'm going to buy that. And in fact, let me just see what the date on it is. Apparently, 2019. So not that long ago. Yeah, no.
Pre-pandemic. What was the world like?
I know. Imagine. And it's kind of weird because like they reference Trump. I'm like, oh yeah, like that did.
Makes sense.
Like as president. Yeah, so pretty cool. But yeah, very, very, very interesting. And I read a lot of science fiction as a youngster, so kind of expanding my horizons a little bit. Also, this is the next to last book on my to read pile.
Oh wow!
What's the last one?
The last one is I can't remember the name of it. It is I can find out because it's bought on Amazon. It is a very heavy Japanese novel, not in terms of weight. It is.
It's over 5,000 pages. Holy crap!
It's One Piece.
Yeah,
light novel.
The light novel.
But it's one of these very serious. So it starts out with a young man who is a member. He is secretly a member of the Untouchables cast. It was written in like the Meiji era, and he's kind of dealing with. Oh boy! Now I'm not gonna be able to find it. And there we go. Hold on. Wow, I forget. I can go back to my earliest order on Amazon in 1995.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm actually curious what that is, but not right now. I bought these a long time ago, and unfortunately I can't. Like, how would I search for that in my orders? Oh well. Point being, so it's about being a member of this untouchable class and trying to hide yourself, and a very heavy, serious novel. So it might be one of those things where I get 5 pages in and I'm like, nope, I don't want to read this right now. Like this is not for me. We'll see. Right. I read a handful of like classic Japanese novels, and some of them I really like, and some of them are just like, nope, it's just not my thing. So we'll see.
Tales of Genji.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Pillow Book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really want to read Tale of Genji at some point. I haven't tried it yet.
It's a thing.
Okay. Fair enough.
And I mean that in a good way.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it entertaining like the Journey to the West?
Oh, Journey to the West is entertaining. It's just so insanely long.
Yep.
God.
Nothing to do for the next 2 years. Keep on reading.
Yeah. And man, the problem Seven Seas has is that people don't buy it. Seven Seas doesn't reprint a lot of stuff because financially no one's going to buy the reprints. Sadly, there is interest, but that interest is not as big as the actual cost of reprints is the big problem. So yes, some folks are clamoring for it, but it's like you can't print 5. Unfortunately, you can't reprint 5 copies, and it just doesn't really work financially, unfortunately. Which is why
or digital release.
Exactly. I was just going to say that digital releases. That is how to do it. There was somebody on Twitter saying, I think people need to realize that if you want more copies of something, buy the digital copies, because that's the only one they'll see, right? If the physicals are not there, but you buy a bunch of digital copies, they'll know if folks want it. That's how the how demand can be seen. For better or
That's how
worse.
50 Shades happened.
It's true. I mean, it's true.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But didn't that win a Pulitzer Prize for its excellent writing? And never mind.
One of these days, I want to skim that. I want to skim 50 Shades of Grey. After everything I've heard about the writing, I'm curious.
Wow.
I admire your curiosity because
Thank
I
you.
would not get near that with a 10-foot clown pole. Not my interest.
I should do. You know what I should do? I should actually do a dramatic reading.
Not interpretive dance. No.
50 Shades.
No.
No.
Wow.
That one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
That's an audience
No,
pleaser.
Yeah.
They'll be like, no. No, I was just thinking of like doing an actual audiobook of 50 Shades because why not a dramatic reading of only one person, a male,
totally.
reading it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is obviously not going to get into it, but it's a level of even if you're not a grammar Nazi, you're still gonna go, oh my god, why did no one look at this? Did no one look at
figure this out?
No, seriously, it's one of those things where it's like the proofreader, nobody proofread it. I mean, there are so many, and we're talking about spelling, you're talking about grammatical, you're everything, and it's just like it's just not like every now and again you can find something in a book, and go, oh, the editor missed it. No, this is like every other page. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. I did read one other.
Fun with that.
I did read one other thing this week.
Yeah.
Volume 6 of How to Build a Dungeon, which I think I mentioned before. Here is the story.
Clarify that since we just talked about 50 Shades of Grey.
That's what reminded me of this.
Wow.
A
34.
A sorcerer basically reincarnates. That's part of the comes back alive, and decides to build a whole big labyrinthine dungeon. And to give you an idea, he needs to summon a demon to sort of manage it, and he summons a succubus.
Oh jeez.
Yes, it's one of those manga. It's weird though because it is about a villain. The villain is the main character. He is an evil man, and he is unequivocal about that. He has an agenda, and there's reasons why he does what he does. He is trying to build this whole dungeon. And to be clear, the reason I continued reading it because I thought how to build a dungeon. It's like D&D. This will be great. And so I started reading, and he summons this succubus, and who's wearing obviously a leather bikini, right? Because right. And he says, "I'm going to build this dungeon. I need somebody to handle it. We have a contract. I know you will. Demons are bound by contracts. I can trust you." He says, "Yeah, but why summon me and not one of the billions of other kinds of demons out there? Like, why a succubus?" He says, "Because with you, I can do this." And proceeds to turn her around and bend her over. And and she's totally willing, to be clear. So what's weird is, on the one hand, it is this really fascinating story about this man who has been driven to desperation and has decided to take on a very dark role and do a thing despite the fact that he crosses some moral event horizons. And why he does that and what he is pursuing and how you would actually go about this in a kind of realistic way. So, for example, there's a point where he has to extend his power from here to there, and there are all these villages in the way. And he shows up in one of these villages with a demonic zombie horde behind him and says, "Hello, I'm going to take over your village. You have two choices. You accept this voluntarily, in which case I will install gargoyles all around the perimeter of your area to protect you. I will make sure you have grain and you have access to water and all that kind of stuff works so that you can actually provide food and shelter and all that kind of stuff. You will have a stable, effective, totally, workable society. I am essentially your lord instead of that guy. Or you refuse, in which case I kill all of you and make you zombies." And they're like...
Utopia? Horrible death.
And they're like... "Either you're lying, or you're telling the truth." And he goes, "Check out these zombies." And they're from 2 towns over.
Ooh. Uncle Ted?
Yeah,
Is that you?
exactly.
Uncle Ted.
And he's
"Oh no, Uncle Ted!"
And he says, there is no advantage to me making you zombies. I would much rather have you all be conscious, intelligent people who can defend themselves, all that kind of stuff. But if you cross me, I will do this. And lots of sex. It's just a weird, weird story.
It sounds so much like Overlord, though.
Yeah.
It does.
You know what I mean? It's got such
really,
flavor
really
of that, because
right,
Albedo is a succubus and is Eingoen's right hand of the Tomb of Nazareth. I mean, it's
right.
It sounds really similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meanwhile, while this is going on, I'm going after Lain and then watching Butt Attack Punisher go come on R.
Mm-hmm.
After watching that, I was just I need something nice. Kino.
Oh, nice.
Kino's journey.
And then, of course,
when
I get
nice.
Well, I'm going to tell you what episode I started. I'm going. I need something nice to watch. I'm going to watch this episode.
Super.
Oh, the family is poisoned.
Oh, dear.
It's the merchant episode.
I've not seen that episode yet.
You haven't seen that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's so there's this episode that introduces a character that's going to be coming in the future. I think because there's no other reason to build up this character called Photo, another girl named Photo, in there, and it's just her story, and it's just it's from beginning to end. I'm just I just wanted something nice.
Yeah. No.
I just wanted something nice. Come on.
Yeah. Kino goes all over the place.
All over the place. Like the previous episode was the one where she was in the traveling country.
Okay.
Which was really, really
the original Kino's Journey anime, and I don't know how much of that they readapt for the new one.
Right.
Those who've watched it know what I mean when I talk about the episode with the rabbits in the snow.
I haven't gotten that one yet.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
should I tell people about this? Yes. So Kino is traveling in the winter. And like they're in the middle of nowhere, and Kino stumbles upon a bunch of a caravan that's broken down, and they've got like empty cages and all that kind of crates and so forth, and they're about to starve, and so Kino goes out and starts hunting rabbits, to feed them, and manages to kind of nurse them back to health. And then once they kind of come back to health and they're conscious, they kind of turn on her, whereupon they reveal what their cargo was, which they had to eat to survive.
Yeah.
It wasn't animals.
Children.
It was a person. And so there's a symbolism of the rabbits she hunted, the life for a life, and it turned out she only managed to find 3 rabbits. There were 2 of them, 1 of her, and so they have all the symbolism of like the lives she took. Now they're alive. Now she is fighting for her life. All that kind of stuff. So yeah. Oh, that is an episode that just starts punching halfway through and just keeps punching you all the way through. It's like, oh damn. Yeah, that is a show.
It's a pretty good series, and for those of you who are into motorcycles, you will love the Motorrad that she
good,
rides,
good.
Because it's a direct. I think it's actually a direct. I mean, it's not the exact same thing, but it's based off of 1909 Indian.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
You can watch Super Cub too, which is based off of Super
True.
Cubs. It doesn't involve eating people.
Yeah, well, I told you that I started Super Cub, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was a I mean it was a nice episode, but again I was kind of looking for something uplifting, and I was like it got uplifting at the end, but like at the beginning, the episode title says it all: the girl with nothing. This is like oh,
she gets better.
Yeah, she does get better, and then figuring out what a gas tank is. But no, it's a good show.
Yeah, I hear that, Jay. Kino's Journey is it hits for you or it doesn't. I totally get that.
I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah. But I can see why people don't. That's fair.
And by the way, the inspiration for watching this show was because I'm going to make an on-con plug here. Was because I had won the clock that you.
That's right.
Kino's in one of the auctions.
Mm-hmm.
So the other night, a little while ago, I was just like, I really should watch this show. So.
I bought that clock in 2006.
Wow.
And I know that because it was on my desk at work when I was watching Haruhi Suzumiya when it first came out. While it was airing. And just those 2 things kind of fused together in my mind of the 2 anime things. Because, Haruhi is one of the anime that I watched kind of episode by episode as it was coming out. And I had downloaded episode 11, the video game episode. If I recall, I think it's episode 11. One day at work. Oh, no, one day before work. I brought it in. I watched it over lunch, and then watched it like 2 more times that day because I just enjoyed it so much. So I watched it like twice at work, twice over lunch, and then I think like I had a break during work, so I went out to the car and like watched it again in the car, just with the air conditioning on. But that's a. I don't even know where I found that clock either. It's weird. It must have been online somewhere. Probably J-List.
Well, now it's by my laptop.
Very good.
My workstation out there.
Very good.
So,
Cool. So speaking of which, OnCon is coming up September 11th. Just a couple of weeks. We've got our next online anime convention. Steve will be doing a panel. Kira will be doing a panel. That's really, really cool. I am hoping to have stuff to announce about the Twitch stream soon, Still waiting on some final details there, but once I hear about that, I will let everyone know. And yeah, I believe we have 24 registrations so far, which is awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It is definitely rocketing along. And yeah, looking forward to that. I also have some really interesting plans for OnCon 6. OnCon 6 might be very different, but more on that later. Just a little hint. I'll talk to you guys about it later. Yeah. I have some very interesting possibilities that actually expanded with Otakon. So we'll see. In terms of anime, I know, Steve, you mentioned you've been watching some great classics of anime this week. Something about butts.
Yeah. So what is it? Butt Attack, Punisher Girl, Gatomon R.
Yeah. That's by Miyazaki, right?
Yeah, that's totally Miyazaki.
Yeah.
And Satoshi Kon. They worked together on this one, and it was magic. It was something.
Magic.
And literally, I was up at 5:03 a.m. and it was one of those kind of tired where you can't sleep, And so I'm just like, okay, I'll find something. And I went I have a Roku device, so I went on to this free service I have called Manga TV, and they have some like really oddball stuff like this, and then there'll be a ton of Studio Ghibli stuff. And so I'm kind of going through this. I'm like, going, no, I can't really handle Ghibli right now. I just need something to get me tired enough to go to bed, because Ghibli, I'll just stay up and watch the whole damn thing. So I came across this title, and I was just like, that I have to.
Yeah.
You see a title like that, and you're just like, oh my god, I pretty much watched this. So it was done in 1994.
Okay.
Played it.
Yeah.
And it was definitely 90s animation. And thank God this thing does not take itself seriously at all. Like it just doesn't. It's not one of those anime where they were trying to do something really, really serious and just fell on its face. No, this is like borderline ecchi, kind of like just silliness. So the heroine is she's before she does the magical transformation, she's a 14-year-old girl at this point, very pious,
great
Catholic, praise, wears the frilly dress that covers everything. She's just almost non-sexual, and she's in love with the pretty boy at school, not realizing that he's the leader of the evil Black Buddhas, and and her heroine persona is always fighting him. And so it's that kind of a thing. So it's just really funny. So she does the magical transformation, magical girl transformation, and so she goes from this dour, pretty cute Kaiwa little girl, pious little girl, and she's got like a halter top, right? Got those great 90s wraparound sunglasses on to cover the eyes, because that's the mask.
Yeah.
A turban. A turban with a big ass feather in the front. Okay. And she's wearing a sumo wrestler's belt, which is the source of her powers.
Okay. Gotcha.
And it goes
all the way up in there.
Yeah. All the way up in there.
Yes.
And to top it all off, she has stupendous thigh-high hooker boots. High-heeled hooker boots. And so she goes from 14-year-old precious little girl to this Gautama. And so she fights for the good god Buddha. To prevent people from being converted to the Black Buddhas.
So just to be clear, she is a Catholic schoolgirl.
Yes.
Who fights for Buddha. Yes. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And her best friend at the school that she because they all live in dorms there. Her best friend is secretly in love with her too.
Of course,
so
right?
Of course, because you have to have the Yuri action going on here. So the roommate is always trying to help her woo the leader of the Black Buddhists, so they don't know that's who he is. And if this sounds like a mess, it is, and this is one big hot mess. And so so you have all these things going on, And then as you're watching this episode, you realize that, okay, well, now I've just seen, and I almost don't want to spoil it, but it's hard not to. But like midway through, so it's basically 2 episodes. It's 2 episodes smashed into one thing, 46-minute thing. And so they rip off of, and they use octopus instead.
I'm sure they rip things off.
Yeah. It ripped off of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but they're octopus.
Okay.
And they're the bad guys.
Okay.
And at the end, the big boss battle, the final battle with the true leader of the evil Black Buddhas, Pope somebody, the 8th or whatever, and he comes out in his final form, and you look at it and you go, is that supposed to be Arnold Schwarzenegger? And sure enough, it's the T2.
Okay. Wow.
Like literally T2. Like by the end of it, it's just the metal skeleton, and they go through then the end of T1 where it's just like the torso and the arm, and, all that kind of stuff. So then when I was doing, because this anime is what I was talking about on my channel this week. So in researching this wonderful piece of anime, I came to find out that this was a sequel. There's something else before this, all of this. And it's a series before this. This is a sequel to a series. That means that there was enough interest to make this thing, to give it a budget.
The 90s was a time, Steve.
Yeah.
And it's the same title minus the R.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, I think, the one I saw.
Yeah.
Out of 10, I gave it a 6. I was like, this is just awful. Still watching it, but it's awful.
It's still awful. So if this is definitely, you see, there's this thing that I have it's called the 4 a.m. drink, and that's the drink when you're already drunk at 4 a.m. You want to keep going, you just don't care what it is. That's the 4 a.m. drink. This is the 5 a.m. anime. Okay? This is the anime, you want to watch anime, you don't really care, you're very tired, and this is what you watch.
You don't
And
have
then
to
at the
follow
end
a
of
plot.
it, and at the end of it, you just go, wow, I gotta tell people about this mess.
Yep, love those discoveries. Reminds me a bit of Lingerie Fighter Papillon Rose. So Lingerie Fighter Papillon Rose is a, which if Becca's still in the chat, she remembers this. It is an OVA, I think 2 OVAs actually, about an adult young woman who it's a Sailor Moon ripoff, but they transform into lingerie and fight with very, very imagine what her Wanda looks like. I'll just put it that way. Yes, it is very, very adult. It is extremely adult, and it is basically what I like about it is clearly kind of making fun of the whole etchiness of anime. This isn't really sexual. Yes, it is. Like it just is. We're just gonna lay it out on the line. No beating around the bush, so to speak, on this one.
Well, there was one not that many years ago. It was Bikini Armor Warriors, where it was just like they just spent time going to the armorer who's like, yes, put on this chainmail like onesie, like tiny little string bikini thing, and they're like, this can't possibly be armor. Oh no, it's the best armor there is.
Yes, exactly.
And they get hired by some creepy dude for lots of gold to do stuff in the armor.
What's great about Papillon Rose is it has a sequel. No, it has a dark sequel.
Oh.
Like the sequel opens with this whole like tragic memory wipe thing that they're all dealing with. Like it's no, you don't do that with a show called Lingerie Fighter Papillon Rose. Just don't go dark with this. This is wrong. Doesn't matter. No one is tuning in for this. But yeah. Cool. John, anything of note anime-wise?
Genshin. Genshin.
Oh, yeah.
Genshin? Some Genshin. There was a Genshin as well.
A little bit of Genshin.
A little bit more Genshin. Trying to keep up with freaking everything. Still trying to. I'm still only on like episode 4 of Odd Taxi. That tells you how far back I am.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to carry forward with girlfriend. All it's a lot to do and very little bit of time to do it in.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually, and one of the reasons why I'm reading these books is I'm trying to get through a bunch of my projects sequentially instead of in parallel, because I've been in that situation where I'm like, I can't make progress on anything, or not enough. So I'm hoping once I get that done and then I have actually a certification to do at work I want to focus on, I'm hoping to get back into anime and just kind of, okay, once those are off the plate, I can actually just say, okay, this weekend, this evening, I can kind of move forward, because it's hard, man. There's a lot. Yeah, totally. I'm up for that. Well, and also, Evangelion. That's a thing that's gonna happen.
Yep. Yeah, one of the streaming things I have that tracks the things I want to watch. Not in addition to Crunchyroll having a queue be 8 miles long. Yeah. I finally jumped into the other streaming service that I view, and I had 52 messages about updates to shows I'm watching. Yep. I'm like, I closed it. I'm just like, I can't look at that right now.
So here's the promise I'll make to you guys. If I win the Maryland Mega Millions or the Powerball,
okay,
if I win this,
are you playing? You got to play.
I am playing. I did actually buy tickets, but if I win and the big jackpot, the one where you walk away with 100 million, whatever after taxes, I will pay us to just watch anime. That's all you have to do. You never have to work again.
Taken.
We have to do.
I'll take it.
I agree.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do it.
It'll come with health benefits.
Okay. Cool.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Absolutely.
401k. I'll set it up.
Damn.
People say, "Oh, I never want to retire. I just want to, I love." No. I'm like,
wow.
No, I totally want to do that. I totally want to sit around all day and watch anime. Come on. Gosh, I'm working towards that as fast as I can. Personally,
I don't want to sit on the front. Yeah, I don't want to sit on the front porch and yell at kids while shaking a rake. Get off my lawn! No, damn it, I want to be watching anime.
Right.
Air conditioning.
Exactly. It's actually one of the weird things is that people talk about how they don't want to retire, and they say, "Yeah, I don't want to just sit around all day and do nothing." Like, you don't have to when you retire. Like, that's the whole. No. Why would you do that? Like,
there
libraries.
Are things you can do.
No.
Yeah. Well, 100 years ago, that's what you did.
Yeah.
Now we live in the future. There are other things. The internet, for example, this miracle invention.
Well, and we can make our own navies, and we can actually. No, we're not going to go there.
Oh boy.
Don't hear that?
It's like a 30-second delay.
Yeah, that's why I have to. That's why I have to turn off the YouTube when I do this. That's why I never watch. I never get to see the thing.
I got it running and muted just so I could see where we are in space and time.
There we go. Okay. Welcome to the latest anime news for the week ending August 14th, 2021. Just needed a minute to settle down here. Yeah, there we go. So the Animated Dormitory Project, which we raised money for at our last OnCon auction, runs a YouTube channel with videos about their current projects, how anime is made, and information about the wage problems in the anime industry. Their most recent video focused on the latter and shared an unfortunate industry statistic. According to them, about 90% of animators quit their jobs within 3 years. The main reason for this being, of course, the low pay offered to animators in Japan, especially in between animators, although that's typically done outside the country. Typical pay is about $1.80 per frame for tweening. If an animator were to draw 300 frames per month, which is a high amount for animators starting out, that would lead to a total of $540 a month. Now, the project points out that these high turnover rates in the industry have created a shortage of skilled animators to both create the animation and to train newcomers, leading to decreases in quality and increases in cancellation. I haven't seen that decrease in quality myself, but anyway. The long-term concern is that these conditions will incentivize animation talent to take their skills elsewhere. Along with the Animated Dormitory Project, the Animation Supporters nonprofit aims to, quote, create a new anime production system completely separate from the framework of the current industry, end quote. Their first project is to create an anime music video currently open for crowdfunding. Their goal is to raise at least $50,000 from overseas and another $50,000 from Japan, which will allow them to create the video and pay their creators a fair wage. 23, quote, famous musicians, end quote, will be creating an original song, including the composers from Ruby, Made in Abyss, and Rise of the Shield Hero,
Nice.
which Japanese animators will then develop an animated video to. And those animators include past residents of the Animated Dormitory and recipients of the project's Housing Aid Program. The music video is currently shooting for an end of November completion, and by that I mean they're currently aiming for an end of November completion, not that they are literally shooting the music video yet, because they don't have the crowdfunding yet, but you get the idea.
Right.
So, here's my question. Is this how to... we talked before about how to kind of affect the anime industry, how to kind of change things. Is this kind of how that starts, with YouTube videos like this to kind of expose things? And talk about it?
It's not a bad thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know enough about Japanese wage law
Yeah.
and
Right.
Whatever their respective if they have a minimum wage established, it seems kind of like
it doesn't.
they might need more kind of legislative action. I can understand maybe they're doing them as contractors or something.
Yeah,
that
it's
they're
contract,
using a
yeah.
loophole in some kind of way. But that it seems like if you want to have some change, you might have to get some legislation involved.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well,
$500 and some odd bucks a month is like a
Not
gross slap in the face.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about a nation that has a weak union structure, I mean, it's not like here or in some European countries where the unions can be strong, where the union themselves can affect legislation. They don't have that as far as I can tell over there. But legislation would definitely be a part of it. But the first thing that you would have to do is cause awareness. Now, the good thing about that is that anime, not just by itself, not by itself, but in conjunction with other things that Japan actually has a footprint in their society, in their government, in how they do, because they're passing laws about manga and anime and copyright and intellectual rights, piracy, things like that. So you're headed in the right direction. You just need to get people behind you, so that you can make the petition, so that you can go find a legislator to take up your cause for you in the assembly or where if it is. It might be small, it might be in a prefecture, or it might be something in a city or whatever, where you would do that and, be able to, because it's an industry, because that's the other part of this, is that this is an industry. And part of the reason why the wages are being kept down is for, obvious reasons, is that the people who own these companies want to maximize the dollars. What do you do? It's like retail. You hit the guys, the workers who, you make X amount of money. So I don't know if it's a minimum wage law type of thing that you would want to pass, as opposed to something more specific like this, which is, hey, we have this industry, we can grow it more if we can keep it sustainable. It's almost like crabbing here in Maryland. We can, there's always a push, there's always one side that says, no, just let us do what we do and we'll crab the hell out of it, and then we won't have any crabs anymore. Or you have, the legislation that says, okay, well, if it gets to a certain point, then we have to stop and, let it rebuild. For the reason why I draw that analogy is that for them, it would be like, if you destroy your own industry, you destroy your own moneymaker. And so this is where you do need law to come in and say, sorry guys, I know that we're a big capitalist country and we kind of move in this direction, and the I forget what the name of the Japanese conglomerate Zabatsu or
Zabatsu, yeah.
Zabatsu. Granted, you have all these things, but at a certain point, you have to go. Do you really want to destroy something that contributes so much to the economy, and actually engages with the world, so you can save a couple bucks? Because like $1.80 for a cell, I mean, just to draw a cell, I mean, that's just insane.
Right. But the weird part about the story is that this has been true since 1963. Right.
Well, this takes time. And like I said, that they don't have over there. They don't. It's easy to dismiss when you don't have power. It's easy for the government to look at you and go, you know what? You go ahead and you yell and scream and put on your little bandanas, white bandanas, and do your little thing out here. We'll wait for you to be done, and then we're going to go on, because that's what they do. That's what Japanese government does. The Chinese do it too. They actually don't crack down like we do on unions sometimes, where we come with pepper spray. They don't always do that. They just kind of let it. Okay, they're just letting off some steam. Just let them do it. It's a pressure valve, and then we'll just keep on doing what we're doing. That's why you need projects like this, and maybe some outside input saying, "Hey, we're not happy with this, and we want this product, so gotta pay the people a little bit more." That kind of thing. Do you and if you have to use the fear method, do you really want the South Koreans to take over your industry? Do you want the Chinese to take over your industry? There's so many different ways to play off of this, but it is going to have to come down to governmental regulation, backed with I think somebody's head on a pole. Someone's got to be the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, it's an odd situation, because it's all coming to light now in a way. It's been around for a long time. I'm hopeful that things like this will continue to be told, and will lead to some kind of change in the industry. We'll see.
I'll say, if there's a diaspora, I can't say that it will hurt any of the other countries these people decide to go to.
Right.
No, that's right.
It could certainly bring the wealth of knowledge and experience to South Korea, to China. Nice to see if it came across the pond to us, that we could get a little bit more of that.
That's an interesting question, because our industry is so different. I wonder if that would even translate. I wonder if their lessons would even work over here,
right?
In our system.
I've mentioned it before in past stream time about Star versus the Forces of Evil has Darcy Nursey, I think that was the prime creator for that. One of her big influences was anime.
Sure. And
the way that the story lays out is still got a lot of episodic function to it, but it also has got that long story form over multiple episodes, and it's like, okay, you watch that show, and it's like you can see where it's got a foot in anime. And it's like, okay, if that influence is there, if you had people coming out of Japan, or the pay is terrible, and you and you could find a place for that, you already have the influence. So now if you just brought the influence literally into the organization, you know what I mean? So it would be an interesting cultural meld.
Yeah.
But
and of course, the problem of, language too. So but I agree.
Or it'd be
where there's profits, you can get over the language barrier.
Or you'd have Netflix just take over everything.
Right? Yeah. That's the true thing.
Sony, Funimation, Crunchyroll taking over.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna go.
Possible. Quite possible. Moving right along, the Digimon franchise held the DigiFest 2021 event last Sunday and brought us a couple of interesting things to talk about. First up, the franchise announced both a new TV anime and a new anime film. The Digimon Ghost Game anime series will premiere this fall, and revealed the above teaser image, which reads, "Holograms? Ghosts?" Interesting. Exactly. The new film will tell a story about Daisuke, known as Davis in English, and other characters from Digimon Adventure 02, the anime series. The film's teaser says, the new Digimon movie is about O2. Now the door to adventure opens. And then a quote, I'm the first person to ever partner with a Digimon. That's interesting. The event also featured a 20th anniversary stage show for Digimon Tamers, which included a live script reading play of an original sequel story set in modern times. And the play was written by Chiaki J. Kanaka, who was head writer on the original Digimon Tamers screenplay, and also on Serial Experiments Lain, which we've been talking about in this. In the play, the Tamers are reunited to fight against a new villain who takes the form of, English translation, political correctness, and threatens both the real and digital worlds. Now, it is dramatically described as the greatest problem facing the internet, to be clear, there have been some translation issues around this, and it caused a lot of controversy online. Kanaka has since written a retrospective blog about the Digimon Tamer series, and basically explained about this, that some of the translation on this was kind of took this the wrong way and said this is about cancel culture, whereas the actual inspiration for this was COVID-19, and the spread of misinformation on the internet around COVID-19 and so forth. Now, Kanaka has expressed some alternative views, let's say, on a variety of things. And he said his concern is that he sees people basically taking on that mainstream society has taken on a kind of, this is the only explanation for things, there is no other answer to things, we will not allow any other answers to things, and this sort of hard line, my way or the highway kind of view about things. And he wanted to kind of address that in this story. And he said he used, strong words that maybe were too strong for what he was talking about, or that were taken more strongly than he kind of intended it, so to speak. But this is really about these concerns about things. And what's funny is there were some people complaining apparently about how he was kind of politicizing a children's show and taking this children's show to be about contemporary events. And he was like, the show back when it was made was about contemporary events. Like the whole point of it is to talk about things that are going on. And he wrote, I hope you'll forgive me for the unusual contents of this entry. But if I don't write about this, I don't think that we'll understand why I've been speaking so passionately about this anime from 20 years ago. So yeah, a lot of backlash about this and a lot of the concerns about this. He expressly denied any particular political beliefs in this. Quote, some of the words I used were controversial. I don't intend to condemn any particular person or group in this drama, end quote. So, of course, what happened was people jumped on the first possible explanation for all of that and insisted on that one explanation for Kanaka's writings, and then didn't listen to anyone else talking about what he was saying and dismissed all of his other viewpoints. So kind of a funny kind of irony in this whole thing about what he was talking about there. So that was basically the reaction to that whole thing. And he also ended by saying he's gonna delete any comments on the blog that get personal. Basically, understandable, because people got very upset about all that kind of stuff. That was the thing this week. And by the way, for those curious, it was basically a drama CD kind of a thing where they get the voice actors together. They do a quick little, not a quick little, but a little dramatic story of maybe 20 minutes, which is just audio only of the various voice actors playing out the characters. Pretty common thing in the industry. So, big kerfuffle this week around all that. I don't know what else to talk about there. It's just it's a thing that happened. But, yeah. Let us move on, because we had a question about this in the chat. As of this week, Sony's Funimation Global Group has officially completed its acquisition of Crunchyroll. The companies have not revealed their plans for the two streaming services yet, but Sony Pictures Entertainment CEO said, quote, our goal is to create a unified anime subscription experience as soon as possible, end quote. So yes, we will see what happens there. He also talked about wanting to deliver the experience across as many platforms as possible. So yeah, it's a thing that's being worked on, and it is coming together. What I find interesting about this is that I think we all know. So here's the thing: anytime this kind of thing happens, it takes a while, right? You can't just merge two entertainment systems together. But the fact that they explicitly say we want to merge this as quickly as possible is kind of surprising. Crunchyroll announced last week the service has just surpassed 5 million paid users around the world and more than 120 million registered users overall. And so, while Funimation has not made its number of users public, although that's going to change soon anyway. We talked before about how we kind of just want the catalog of Funimation with the user interface of Crunchyroll. Just combine those two with that would be nice.
I mean, and that would be the fastest means of doing it. Is just literally yank the plug on Funimation's streaming, and just say, okay, now the content's available on Crunchyroll. Because, again, like we've talked about so many times before, Crunchyroll has really done a very decent job at making accessibility to the site, searching the site, watching on the site. That's the thing that they did well, and would just be so much easier to consolidate that, and that hopefully that's where their heads are.
And to be clear, like technically, there are a lot of steps. Like probably those videos aren't encoded in the same way that Crunchyroll is. They're not organized the same way. They have a completely different system. They'll have to like copy untold terabytes of data to a new system. Do that in a way that doesn't get it then pirated by everyone, all that kind of fun stuff.
To that point, what I would tell people, if you're wondering how they're addressing that issue, go to Indeed.com and just write anime jobs and see what pops up. Because I did that the other day, just for giggles.
Yeah.
When I did that, and there are jobs that are talking about encoding.
Yep.
Are talking about those kinds of things and how that they're going to market out, and they're jobs that are here. Here in America. And so with obviously with network communication.
Yeah.
But there's a huge amount of jobs via Crunchyroll than there had been about a month ago. There's exponentially a large amount of jobs. So
which I think is really interesting.
So
there once was an operating agreement between Funimation and Crunchyroll,
right?
So that Funimation was allowing was agreed with by contract for Crunchyroll to stream the things that Funimation licensed. So I understand about making content when Funimation said no, we're going to do this, making that content streamable in a way that Crunchyroll couldn't, so that they could differentiate the two services and be like, oh, you can't just like one to one, you can't find a way through to one catalog from the other. It's like it's totally different. But I would be curious to know how far different did they code the stuff for Funimation streaming versus Crunchyroll. Like, is it going to be a super huge pain in the butt to do that, to like convert terabytes worth of information? Or is it like, oh, well, no, see, in this line, there's like an on-off. How we turn that on and Crunchyroll can stream it. Like, thank you, have a good day.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Well, and you also have a lot of legal ramifications, right? Like, does Crunchyroll probably operates in different countries than Funimation does?
That
is girlfriend licensed to stream in that country with fun, all those sorts of things, and now we have to worry about this service is providing this thing, and we now technically own all of it, but all of the legal ramifications you have to kind of work out, and then all of the sort of who owns the translation, all that would be an interesting question of how all that connects together. So yeah, it's interesting. What I say
for ownership and like translation, and those are fairly boilerplate stuff, where successors and assigns, where you end up getting the successor to the company gets your
upon purchase
permissions for
right.
those kind of crap. But yeah, the whole, if Funimation's licensed in Canada and for some reason Crunchyroll isn't, that's a really, like, if you flip the on switch, all of a sudden, everybody's like, hey, we live in Canada, what happened to everything? Sorry, guys.
Or vice versa, that company, there's another company that's licensed that in Canada, and now suddenly Funimation is running in Canada too, and there's a whole block. What I suspect this means is actually their registration system's going to merge. So there's going to be, your Funimation account will work on Crunchyroll. Because that's the easiest way to do it, is just make it so the accounts both match. So it's like your Microsoft account or whatever, and then you can just use both services, you're good to go. And then they can kind of push down the road, and obviously they're doing the integration, but that part is at least handled.
What is that's Google Chrome and YouTube?
Yeah.
So
right.
You get that. Right. It works across those things.
Yeah.
So who knows? But I
think what we are all praying for is don't mess with the catalog.
Screw it up.
Which opens up the larger question. So, I mean, what are the implications of this? Because it's obviously a major industry consolidation. When this first came out, I suspected it wouldn't go through. I suspected something would happen to the deal. It would fall apart. But it is happening. And there are obviously arguments on both sides, where on the one hand, conglomeration means, something closer to a monopoly. On the other hand, there are some industries that do not operate well with, 38 different competing little companies. And this consolidation might be good in the sense that Japanese companies can just deal with the one company, everything goes through them, everything's kind of dealt with. I don't know. Do we feel like this is, in the short to medium term, going to kind of affect the flow of anime in any way?
Not in the first 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for the very reasons that we've just been talking about, hammering out all the different stuff.
Yeah.
Various things. I think once it becomes streamlined, and once you, then you're going to start seeing changes, and then that's when you're going to take a look at. That's when Sony's going to take a look at it and go, do we want to have something that's a massive catalog and that we can just make money off of that and do residuals and things of that nature?
Yeah. Or
do we want to be like Netflix and do we just want to create? And in that fashion, then we have to make budgetary decisions because while we would all love to see Butt Attack Punisher Girl Gatomanar, it's wouldn't that be probably the first thing to get cut in a budget?
Right.
If you had to choose between that and having money to make a new Ghost in the Shell series or a new Fate or whatever it is. But at that point, that's when Sony's going to do the smart thing, and they're going to cut the catalog at that point. Yeah. So it kind of depends on what they want this to be. My guess is that they're actually probably going to be fine with. I think they'll keep most of the catalog. Honestly, I don't think they're into creation. I think they're going to leave that up to other parts of their industry.
Well, it's an interesting question. What happens to Crunchyroll Originals? Right, as an initiative, right? Obviously, those will still stay, but is that going to be kind of a victim of all this, where the Funimation's like, that's not really our thing. We don't really care to do that anymore. So, and in fairness, some of those Crunchyroll Originals were not good. They were not well received.
Like
Come
Netflix.
on, God of High School and Tower.
Those were.
Tower of God. They were.
Right. I didn't say all, but some.
They were a thing.
Yeah.
So I think what's going to happen is that what you'll see is that they'll become more like Netflix. It'll become more like Netflix insofar that they're going to buy what is made. They're not going to make the things. They're going to buy the things that are made. So you're still going to have studios. You're still going to have Studio Ghibli. You're still going to have all these guys out there making stuff, and then it's up to Sony or Netflix or actually, it's a Sony or Netflix,
Yeah.
and whether or not they can
And Right Stuff
to go in there. Yeah, and Right Stuff. Yes, Right Stuff, absolutely.
Which no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that it's just as long as you can compete. Well, you know what? It'll almost be like going to network days when it was just NBC, ABC, CBS.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it'll be that kind of competition.
Yeah. So speaking of which, just gotta throw this in here. Boogie Pop Phantom was, I think, the second thing Right Stuff ever licensed. And as I was reading this, I came across one of the characters is named Nozomi. Just saying. Just saying. Kind of interesting. I don't know. Possible. But yeah, I agree. I think that's what we're gonna see.
Well, I think when you get the big conglomeration of anime, I really, it's hard to feel like that's a threat to up and coming people who are trying to create a platform that's different to provide access to anime, because they exist, but I'm not like terribly aware of like there's 50 of these little things that are junior Crunchyrolls, and that they're struggling to eat in a very very heavy large conglomerate kind of market. And it's like, so what I mean, I would feel threatened by that, but I was like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that having this, association.
Well, there's High Dive, High Dive. There's a few others.
Who owns High Dive, by the way?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
And that's the other thing, is that as the streaming technology moves on, that there's nothing to say that somebody else couldn't come along and make the competitor, streaming channel and things of that nature.
I don't know about that, because I think technologically it's very expensive to run a streaming service. If anything, the dominance of YouTube and the death of all of its competitors have shown the difficulty of that. And I think it's the licensing issue. We had, what was the service, Anime Souls from I think 10 years ago, SOLS. They launched an online anime streaming service purely for like classic anime, like Tezuka stuff, like that kind of level, like Unico, and they had contacts with Japanese licensors, and so their deal was if when you paid for the service, you basically were crowdfunding each show's translation. So when you paid for things, you were paying for them to translate a show, and if enough people paid for it, it would then appear on the service. They get someone to translate it, it would then appear on the service, and then you would crowdfund another show that would appear on their service. And they did a handful of shows, and then it died because they couldn't because the Japanese licensors would give them this and see how that works out. Then they give them this and see how that works out. And they wouldn't give them anything big, anything successful, anything, huge. Just, here's a show from 40 years ago. And they couldn't get enough excitement about the series. The platform could never really grow. And so they had to kind of die. So it's that question is, can anyone get both the technology and the ear of the right people to license the right shows? That's the interesting question. I don't know.
I think when you've got these, Sony and Funimation and Crunchyroll all together, it's going to be really hard to find anybody else who can feed in this market.
Yeah.
It's like,
and which again, maybe just the natural evolution of the market that it makes sense to have one person that everyone goes to. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's always the chance that Disney Plus could throw their hat into the ring. You know what I mean? It's like when you have...
Well, Netflix is certainly streaming lots of anime. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, if you had... And that's the thing, it's, like I said, worrisome, but not worrisome. Yeah. It's like the idea of a young, scrappy bunch of programmers and like kids coming together and, putting their nose to the grindstone and making it big. It's like... It's probably more likely for streaming services you're going to see other large... formations be like, yeah, we'll take a slice of that too. We'll run Sony for a little competition here.
Amazon has a fair number too. Now that I think about it, as well on Prime Video, So,
and these are big players.
Yeah.
You know?
We'll see. So it was announced this week that next month's issues of Young Animal magazine will publish a new chapter of the Berserk manga by the late Kentaro Miura.
Wow.
The chapter is labeled as the latest chapter of the manga, and based on the teaser images you see above, seems to pick up where the story left off in the previous chapter. The public is not yet privy to how much of this chapter Miura had created before his passing, or whether more of his work is still prepared and unpublished, so it remains to be seen whether the manga will continue on. The magazine itself will also be a memorial issue to Miura, who passed away unexpectedly back in May, and will include a special booklet of messages to Kentaro Miura, as well as a poster of famous scenes from the manga.
When you first said that, when you said new chapter, I thought I heard nude chapter. And I was just like, no.
I mean, it's Berserk. That is a
That's
thing.
fiction.
You know, Berserk can go in that direction, definitely.
I was
but
gonna say before passing, it was like, I'm just gonna do this thing.
Yeah,
Just for
exactly.
the heck of it, see who gets any attention on this. I hope for this and for so many others where the original creators have passed on, that they had their pen and ink people. That there was somebody in there who was like an apprentice who had like the ear of the creator that could be like, oh, yeah, I can not only draw this, but I also know where they were going with this.
Right.
So with permission and with all the appropriate people behind it, we can finish this thing. I don't think I can go the next 30 years with it, but I can draw it to a close like they intended.
Well, the thing is, mangaka works so closely with their editors to begin with. I'm sure the magazine knew where it was going.
Yeah.
Right. There's no question they had a very clear idea of where Miura. I shouldn't say no question, but it is very likely they had if Miura had any idea, the editors probably had an idea. But yeah, it's interesting. What I find so fascinating about this is kind of the secrecy about it. It's not hey everyone, Miura's assistant number 2 is going to be continuing the story. It's not this chapter was left 90% done or it was basically complete. It's just, there's a new chapter. And it's like, okay, what's going on here? Like did you pull out a Ouija board or what's going on? It's very, very weird.
The clone is working.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. Okay, so Edmund said Miura had many notes that his assistant had. So that makes sense. It's fascinating. So we'll see. The other question is, okay, so you have another chapter. Is there a chapter after that? Is it just we have one more? Okay, right.
And now Guts gets isekai'd into a
hey, there we go.
No, do not do this.
Oh dear, I had so many places I could go with that, but I'm not going to.
It's Love Live School Guts.
Hey!
You thought singing and dancing was cute with little moe girls. Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. Band of the Hawk. The band of the Hawk.
Oh.
Hawk the Slayer.
There you go.
Little chibi running around with the sword.
Also this week, Fred Ladd, an American TV and film writer and producer, as well as a pioneer for anime in North America, passed away last week at 94 years old. Ladd was instrumental in bringing early anime to North America. He was one responsible for re-editing and redubbing the Tetsuwan Atom anime into the original Astro Boy, the first anime to ever air in North America. He also produced the Gigantor and Kimber the White Lion anime in the 60s, and even served as a creative consultant on the original English dub of Sailor Moon. What is also less known is that he is the one responsible for the internationalization of English in anime. When Astro Boy came over here, they got it while it was still in production. He went over to Japan to show Tezuka how they were re-editing it, And he said, by the way, like, I was driving here and I saw that, like, half of the cafes have their signs in English. You know, like, use English words in their signs. If you just did that with all the signs in your anime, with all the cafe signs and such, you could internationalize this everywhere and have no problems. And you wouldn't have all of this, like, weird Japanese, not weird, all of this Japanese everywhere. And it would be very, I'm thinking, Tetsuko was like, that's a good idea. And that has become the standard for anime ever since, is to have all these signs in English. That was Fred Ladd. So, thank you, Mr. Ladd, for helping anime to be where it is today.
Wow. Fred Ladd passed notes to Tetsuko.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
he listened.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty damn monumental, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Pretty crazy. The latest event to announce their return to in-person format is Comic Market, which is tentatively set to hold Comic-Con 99 on December 30th and 31st. The staff stated, quote, given the necessary time for preparations, applications by circles, looking at the effects of vaccination, and the increase in cases in recent weeks, we're trying to predict the situation a few months into the future. Therefore, we can't deny the possibility of another postponing in case that vaccination does not sufficiently improve the situation by the end of the year. However, if we don't plan and start the preparations now, there will certainly be no Comic Market, end quote. So it makes sense. You know, if it's a possibility, they'll at least make the plans. While pre-pandemic Comic-Cons usually had attendees in the several hundreds of thousands, this one will likely be restricted to just tens of thousands of people per day, with, of course, a lottery system for passes to purchase in advance.
Just tens of thousands.
It's okay.
Just tens.
Right. Yeah. But it's okay. The Japanese are used to that. The lottery system, I mean. Crunchyroll announced last week it is partnering with actress Zoe Saldana's Sinistar Pictures to develop Dark Star Squadron, a new epic animated space opera. As described by Crunchyroll, Dark Star Squadron follows the journey of 4 failing cadets who return from a joyride with a stolen starship to find their academy in ruins and everyone who vanished. The series will be written by Todd Ludy of Voltron Legendary Defender, with Zoe, Cicely, and Marielle Saldana self-described true animation and anime fans, none of those fake anime fans, serving as executive producers. So, sounds kind of like a Voltron Legendary Defender's sort of direction on that, which is cool. That certainly had a lot of fans of it. It was revealed in last week's Weekly Shonen Sunday that Takahiro Arai's Detective Conan Police Academy arc Wild Police Story manga series, a spin-off of Detective Conan, is getting a TV anime adaptation. Because there's not enough Detective Conan out there. They haven't animated enough of that. And
the title's not nearly long.
No. In another world. Right.
Yeah.
Another police-themed TV anime was also announced. Miko Yasu's Police in a Pod manga will premiere sometime next year. The comedic story about a female police officer who, just before handing in her resignation, meets the new female director of her station and decides maybe she's not done being an officer after all. For fans of sports anime, the Blue Lock soccer manga is getting a TV anime sometime next year. It follows Japan's national soccer team as they gather 300 of the brightest young players to search for an ace striker who can turn their recent defeats around. That's a shocker.
Will they go to nationals?
Yeah. The Love All Play badminton novel is also inspiring a TV anime airing next spring. The teaser visual describes it as, quote, a once-in-a-lifetime coming-of-age story that hurtles at 400 kilometers per hour, end quote, which references the speed of the badminton shuttlecock, which is the world's fastest object in sports, technically. Tomohiko this is going to be a tough one. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute.
Breathe. Center your chi.
Tomohiko Morimi's Tatami Time Machine Blues novel, which is the sequel to the Tatami Galaxy novel, is also getting a TV anime. Makoto Ueda, who is a friend of Morimi's, who wrote the scripts for the original Tatami Galaxy anime adaptation, as well as the play that inspired the Tatami Time Machine Blues novel, will write the script for the new anime. And Shingo Natsume, a One Punch Man, and Sunny Boy will direct the anime at Science Saru.
Wow.
Yeah. Lots
That
of
would be
little.
interesting.
Yeah. Lots of little folks involved.
Tatami
there.
Galaxy was a Was a show.
I've heard that is what I've heard of everyone who's watched it. It's like, wow. Just wow.
The Night is Long, Night is Short, Walk On Girl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's in a space.
Okay.
Like where you really have to be a certain mindset to be watching it at the time you're watching it.
Exactly.
Not to be taken lightly.
Yeah, there we go. Totally. A TV anime has also been greenlit for a teen romantic comedy manga series called A Harem is Indispensable, which will debut in April of next year. It follows the daily life of a quiet girl who's not good at gauging personal boundaries and the boy who sits next to her in class. I'm hoping that has a bit of a My Neighbor Seki-kun feel.
Teasing Tagaki-san.
Yeah. I hope it's not that, personally. Yeah. An anime is also in the works based on the My Master Has No Tail manga. It is set during the Taisho era, following a shape-shifting tanuki girl who dreams of becoming human, and another shapeshifter who becomes her master in the ways of playing a human. Which could be cute. And in the latest installment of Inanimate Objects Turned into Cute Girls, the Hanabi-chan is Often Late manga, announced an anime adaptation last week. The comedy reimagines, get ready for this, Universal Entertainment's pachinko slot machines as cute girls working in a pachinko hall.
I'm there.
Yep.
I'm there.
Yep.
Steve's
there.
all over.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm there.
This will make all the money. All the money.
All the exclusive endings
Yes.
of every licensed pachinko park.
Totally.
Oh,
Totally.
Yes.
absolutely.
The Ganbare Doki-chan, doujinshi manga, announced an upcoming web anime adaptation. It is published on the author's Twitter account and features the theme of two work colleagues mistakenly put in the same hotel room on a business trip.
And hijinks ensue.
Hijinks ensue.
Wackiness, no doubt.
Exactly. New episode's coming for the Nanan Biori Non-Stop anime. The original anime DVD will be bundled with a special version of the compiled volume of the manga and will be the 13th episode of Nanan Biori. Yeah. The developers of the Cthulhu-themed tabletop RPG Mountains of Madness, Summit of the Evil Gods announced last week they are launching a crowdfunding campaign towards a 10-minute pilot anime film.
Oh,
my goodness.
The first step towards an eventual anime film based on the RPG. Image, board art, and a script are currently being drafted for the project, and developers are currently looking for collaborators. The crowdfunding campaign is set to launch in October, naturally. Good news for fans of Tite Kubo's Bleach manga. A new 73-page chapter will be published in next week's issue of Weekly Shonen Jump to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the manga's launch. The magazine teased the story, saying, Ichigo was invited to Soul Society for a certain ceremony, but...
he gets distracted by the fact that he has to go and file out Form 147 at the local prefecture office. It's a wacky adventure. Oh, boy. Here we go.
Speaking of returns to manga, a new chapter is also announced for the Tatakai Ramenman manga, the first new chapter in the manga since it ended in 1989.
Whoa. Wow.
So, new manga coming back all around this week. That is.
You want to make sure you got a whole new audience.
Exactly.
By like a lot.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
This ain't your grandparents. Actually, it is your grandparents.
It is. Like, holy cow. All right.
That's all the news for this week. Thanks for watching. We will see you all next week. Woo!
1989. I work with people that weren't born then.
Yeah, I know.
Like, so, I mean, that's.
Oh my god.
You know what was the old thing? It's like about reruns. If you haven't seen it before, it's new to you.
There we go.
Like,
That's right.
That's exactly the
Exactly.
89. What has even
Woo.
brand new content to that.
There was they announced a new Amiga like mini console thing. One of those things you buy a little box and it basically emulates Amigas, like the Nintendo Retro and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I was watching a show on that, and the guy running it he's in his 40s, I think, and he said to the other folks, okay, how many of you were born after this came out? Like the original Amiga. They're like, yeah, I hadn't been born yet. I haven't been born yet. And he's like, oh, you know, you're so old. Yeah. But seriously, Jay says, seriously, imagine Death Note on Ice.
Yes.
I can see it too. I'm sad I can see it, but I can see it.
I'm just imagining the Ryuk skating and doing a triple Lutz, getting an apple.
Yeah, exactly. I think that works, right?
I'm torn between like Norwegian death metal as like the background music or Cardi B.
Why can't it be both? Like Judgment Night. Remember the Judgment Night soundtrack?
Okay. You know?
Judgment Night was rap and heavy metal.
Okay.
Is there a way to integrate a reunion of NSYNC and Boyz II Men and Backstreet Boys into that? I don't have the creative capacity to come up with that without my brain exploding.
Yeah. What was the news piece, Ant-Man? I'm not sure. We're talking about a couple of things in anime history.
Oh no, Mugen Train? Was it a Mugen Train discussion? I don't think we had one this week.
Because today is an important day in history, not just anime history. Ooh. Like today. Which a few folks might remember. August 14th. An important day in world history. Back in the 40s.
The Japanese government formally decided to accept the unconditional surrender terms of the Potsdam Conference.
Correct. Well done. VJ Day.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't be memorialized finally on the Missouri until September.
Yep.
Still.
Yep. And it wasn't announced until August 15th in Japan.
Yeah.
And signed September 2nd. Excuse me.
Yep.
Guts on Ice, I agree, would be more entertaining. But,
that sounds like...
Boy, that Zamboni would be really busy.
It would. Mommy, why is the ice so pink? Well,
little Bobby.
Keep the Zamboni running. We've got a New York Rangers game in 15 minutes. We can't have this looking like a slaughter field. They beat each other in hockey, too. Oh, good point.
Just get the large chunks off. That's
exactly. Let's talk about history real quick. There's only a couple of things, actually. All right, got to reposition myself a little bit. We'll talk about some history. Welcome to This Week in Anime History, where we talk about things that happened this week in anime history, starting with today, or actually just this week, August 10th, was Patlabor Day in Japan, celebrating all things patrol labor and the policing of labors in Japan. I always find it funny that a fictional universe like that gets a day to celebrate. Really awesome.
Yes.
And so, of course, celebrations were had. And also, moving into an actual historical day, August 14th, 1945 was VJ Day. The day of the victory over Japan, the unconditional surrender of Japan following World War II, which was announced today in the U.S., announced the following day in Japan, because, time zones and weirdnesses and, transatlantic cables, actually trans-Pacific cables, all that kind of fun stuff of communication, and then signed later on in September. But yes, this was the end of World War II. The full end of World War II, shall we say.
Yes.
Back in 1945, which would then eventually lead to Japan's economy recovering and eventually making cartoons that we all love.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Indeed.
Cool. I can also talk about something I love, which I know is something that Steve loves.
Ooh.
I don't know if John's seen this. He probably has at some point.
I've seen a lot of things.
You've seen a lot of things.
I've seen some things.
I've seen some things.
I wouldn't recommend them, but I've seen them. Oh boy.
I'm going to talk about one of my original anime joys, and I'm shocked I don't have a review of this on the channel yet. Like, this was foundational for me.
Haruhi.
Tank police, feel the power that we've got. Tank police, gonna give it our best shot.
Oh yes.
This is Dominion Tank
Police.
I love this OVA, and oh man, is it a trip. Dominion Tank Police is an OVA, and I'm going to fast forward past the really weird opening sequence to the very weird anime, which is by Masamune. The manga is by Masamune Shiro of Ghost in the Shell. This is not Ghost in the Shell.
No.
It is about the whole boy. It's science fiction, relatively near future science fiction, set in a near future in which Earth's biosphere has almost completely collapsed. People have to wear masks outside. Boy. That got prescient.
This was COVID-10.
Right, exactly. And crime has gotten so bad that the police need tanks, basically, to deal with all of the heavy crime going on out there.
Glorious tanks.
The glorious tanks. Because crime gets pretty crazy out there. So you have literally police who just maintain and roll out tanks when bad things happen. And so you have
Puma girls.
Yes. Oh boy, the Puma girls. So the and they like to read How to Kill magazine, which I just love. So Masamune Shiro, creator of Ghost in the Shell, he does serious stuff and he does comedic stuff. Most of his stuff is actually a little more comedic and light. This is definitely on the light side of things.
Yep.
So the whole premise, the whole big sort of setup of the plot is that the tank police get a new member, Leona, a girl transferring from the motorcycle department, I believe, into the tank police, and she has to sort of prove herself to the very manly men of the tank police division. This is the 80s, so if social climbing is hard now, the gender barrier was a problem now. It was a lot worse back then, so she has to kind of prove herself that she can do as well as anybody else. And boy, does she love tanks, particularly her favorite tank, Bonaparte, which we will get to here in a bit. Meanwhile, a criminal and his two lovely girl assistants are breaking into a hospital, and again, sort of wackiness ensues from all of that. Here's the thing. Dominion Tank Police is an action comedy, fundamentally, right? It is silly things going on, absurdly over-the-top violence as a result of those silly things, lather, rinse, repeat. Until about halfway through.
Yeah.
When suddenly it turns into a tone poem about man's inhumanity to man, and it becomes it elevates itself in a very odd way. It is a beautiful scene, which I can't really show you because there's a lot of like experiments being done on people and like nudity and things or whatever. But it's a really remarkable scene. This does have depth and complexity to it a lot of the time, along with a lot of like really weird goofiness. It's the kind of anime where you just kind of have to accept what it's doing and acknowledge that that is the thing that it's doing and just live with it. I love it a lot because I had no idea what anime was when I watched this, and I still had no idea what anime was after I'd finished watching it, because it was everything all at once. It just hit all of the tones. Here you go. And it's just, yes, police who do way more damage to the city than the criminal element is kind of the theme of this.
That's what happens when you bring a tank to a pistol.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Pretty much. But if they don't show the criminals who's boss, right? Like, that's basically the theory. So this anime is great, again, if you kind of accept that it is a lot. It is all the things. But just great fun, and it's just a wild ride all the way through. Also, there are moments. There's a very adult sequence in this, and it's not between people.
No.
There's a whole visual thing that will kind of shock you, and it's clearly there to be just kind of, wow, they went there. They actually did that. That was completely unnecessary and really hilarious. So just be aware of that.
The ultimate tank.
The ultimate tank deterrent. Yes, absolutely. Same here. Here, and man, late '90s Sci-Fi Channel. That was my exposure to Dominion Tank Police, in a somewhat edited form, and great fun. As far as I know, like the last copy I have of this still has the original dub, which is a dub of its time. So just understand that. Early days.
Oh boy.
But again,
Glorious.
yes, very glorious in all sorts of wonderful craziness.
So, well acted. Good.
Acted, definitely. Yes. And
they were speaking.
They were speaking and they were emoting. And I will say it, from what I recall, and it has been a while. The acting is deliberately matches the tone of the show, right?
Yes.
Like, they're not trying to be restrained. They're trying to be, goofy and ridiculous, but it does match the tone of the show, and like it's not. Just try it out. See if you like it. I'm not even going to try to. Just there's the Japanese dubs on there as well. You can always go to that if you're
right.
going for that. But yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, I love Dominion Tank Police beyond all reason, just because it is a formative anime for me and just a great ride.
Indeed it is. That was actually the first. That was actually the first anime where I wanted to buy the soundtrack. I love that song. I love that song.
Yeah.
And also one of the weird things about the connection between that and Ghost in the Shell is that.
Oh right. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you watch Ghost in the Shell, the movie, as she's Motoko is standing on top of the building right before she does the dive, right? They talk about Newport City. Well, Newport City is the city in Dominion Tank Police.
Yep. And
you also see briefly a cameo of the Puma Girls in the movie as well, and they play bureaucrats.
The Puma, at least in the manga, they are in the street market.
Street market. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm also going to see if I can find the other reference, and I'll put it back on screen if I can find it.
And then the guy who plays the main villain, who turns out to be sympathetic.
Yep.
Thank you. He has a cameo, and he plays a former associate of Motoko.
Oh, cool.
In
cool.
one of the cities. So,
and in fact, in Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, in second gig,
that's right. Yeah.
There's a shot of a bunch of like androids in like big tubes,
Yes.
And the Puma Girls are one of them. They're in there. Where can I find a shot? Again, if I can find it, I will show it up.
Now
because
I had the pleasure of taking a picture of two Puma Girls at Otakon.
Nice.
In 2014, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah. But they did the manga cover where it had they had wearing the armor. And
nice.
That kind of thing.
Man, this is annoying me. Because it should be right there. It's one of it's a character that doesn't show up a lot, so I might be just kind of skipping right past her. But if we can find it, you all will know exactly what I'm talking about, because it's kind of a fun little joke in there. Bunch of people. Gah, that's annoying. It's not gonna happen. Yeah, there's the scene, by the way, Steve. I'm zipping past. So, for those that now that we're kind of off, they have an anti-tank sort of suppression system, which are these giant inflatable objects that kind of appear, that they inflate, and they provide obstacles, and they are long cylinders with a certain shape. Yes, exactly. So there's a scene where all these things just spring up all along a road.
Oh my!
Wow, anime, you did that thing. Okay.
Yep.
So if I can't find this, I'm just gonna let you all know. The reference is that the secretary, the sort of the police secretary, is is Aramaki in Ghost in the Shell. All of his secretaries.
Right. Yeah.
It's the same.
It's the same thing.
It's the exact same model.
Oh wow.
And it is clear that we're close. We may be close. Hold on. It is clear that Masamune Shiro just likes that character design and just reused it because it was easy. Why not just reuse it? But yeah, there's the chief, the police chief. There is she. It's just not gonna happen. Oh well. Those things you're like, I know it's here. I just have to find it, and it's just in all of the scenes that you don't look at, that you skip right over. Damn. Actually, I'm gonna zip to the end, see if maybe she's in one of the final shots. Not that it matters that much. Boink, boink, because if
you'll find it 10 minutes after.
Right, exactly. That's what it's gonna be.
Damn it! There it was.
There's there. Yeah, no, it's not gonna be there. Oh well, such is life.
Next week, tune in to find out.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get screenshots, and you can just Google it. Let's be honest. We'll look it up. Well, I have a question.
What did we learn on the show tonight,
Brian? Rockabilly.
I was listening to that today.
I learned that one should look for all the information about things that are going on. Don't jump to conclusions, in other words. I learned that Funimation is going to take over the anime market and will become a giant monopolistic behemoth, and we have a horrible Terminator-style future. No, I'm kidding. And I also learned that apparently manga never dies.
Nope. Just reincarnates.
All manga goes to heaven.
I was going to say the same thing. Be like, I didn't ever realize that a deceased mangaka could still produce after death.
Apparently.
And that's probably an industry standard. That once you sign the contract, you are theirs forever.
That's actually a really interesting point. I just realized that could be in their contract.
Dead?
Yeah. Now I wonder if that's in their contract. That for some of these, especially some of the older manga, it could be essentially Shueisha's manga.
It could well be.
Yeah.
They sold the absolute right to it.
Yeah.
Good thing.
Yeah.
Either that, or there's this pencil that's just magically drawing nonstop.
You flip the contract over, there's like a big pentagram thing and all kinds of weird words and stuff. Sign here, blood, drop of blood. Very good. What? The contract is now active. What do you mean active? So the world, according to Sony, interesting streaming world. Hopefully, a better streaming world that will benefit from this, not have the Terminator-like future where they're going to go through and be like, all those classic, great, Evangelion, that whole thing. We just don't like that on the catalog, so we're just going to throw that over here and nobody can watch it ever again. What? So, hopefully
we just really like Garzi's wings.
So, for April Fools, they should totally do that. Just like, everything goes off and it's just Garzi's wing for
Can you just
all day.
imagine the screams heard worldwide? Why? The poor horses in that anime.
Garzi's Wing and Lingerie Fighter Papillon Rose. The only anime available. And, of course, Butt Girl.
Yes.
How about you guys?
Well, that's what I've already learned. Those things I learned. Steve, what'd you learn?
What did I learn? So
with
I
your
actually
magical
learned...
glowing headset.
Oh, I know, right? It's like I'm tuned in to Lane.
Exactly.
I've learned that Lane is hard to watch.
Yeah.
And it's just nightmare fuel occasionally. And sometimes anime can, like, when you watch something like that and you want to go, okay, I need something nice to watch. Sometimes anime can kick you in the butt and go, oh, here's that wonderful little series, like Kino's Journey, and here's a wonderful little thing, and you've been enjoying this, and here's death and destruction and mayhem. Thanks.
You like mecha? You should watch Evangelion.
Yeah, right. It's happy. There's a great there's a great scene of Shinji next to Asuka in the hospital. There's a wonderful scene.
Great.
There.
It's great. Very healthy. Everyone
feel...
applauds for him at the end. It's great.
Yeah.
It's applause worthy.
Indeed. I've also learned that, and I actually said this on Kira's channel when she did, because the Gabachan, was it Gabachan? The things where you put in money, you
Gachapon.
Like it.
Gachapon.
Yep. Thank you. I've learned that I need to open a sake bar with pachinko and gabachan.
Yes.
There, and get everyone liquored up, and then hand them over there, and make my millions.
Well, and here's my question: do you make gachapon of the pachinko moe girls?
Hell yeah!
Of course.
Yeah, because
it
you
feeds
can't,
on itself.
That's the thing. You can't do like pachinko of the pachinko moe girls because that's just an infinite loop, right? That'll just suck the whole universe in. You have to go like gachapon of the pachinko girls. Right? Yeah,
yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay.
But once everyone's drunk, then kind of they'll just be like, it's not the one I wanted. And you just actually put all the ones of the same thing, except for the ones that people just keep trying to get.
Yep.
Because that's
like Monopoly.
Yeah, just like Monopoly.
I wonder if they do that at like Myrtle Beach for like spring break. If they just put like gachapon things and like little tchotchke little things everywhere, and be like, okay, drunk kids, start buying stuff. It'll be awesome.
She had a really good point though when I said that. I was wanted to open a sake bar with all this stuff. She goes, "Wouldn't it be great if they had those things at conventions?" And I was like thinking to myself, "Oh my god! Like one entire wall. Can you imagine just one entire wall of that?"
I think AX did that. I've seen it at a con somewhere where they had gachapon. Yeah.
And sake.
No, not sake. That would change everything.
A bunch of drunk 14-years going.
14-year-old? That'd be a drunk 40-year-old. They're the ones with the money.
And I've learned that watching anime at 5 a.m. can involve very interesting choices based on titles.
Yeah.
Life choices.
Like, no, not life choices. Life choices. Not life choices, because I have no desire. Because no one wants to see me turn into, turban wearing, hooker, booted, sumo wrestler.
Hey, if those guys could recreate the Cardcaptor Sakura opening,
Right. And
you can do it.
Yes, and the last thing I learned, tonight was, or not just tonight, but over the past week, was that in the effort to get my passport ready and so that for our eventual Japan trip in the spring, I'm going to take your enthusiasm, Don.
Of a year of some unknown marking.
Right.
We didn't say which spring.
Yeah. Spring.
I found things that I like bad pretentious drunk malt liquor poetry about hookers. I mean, that's just very very fun things to find, and you're just like, I'm so glad this is in a box in the back of the closet that no one will ever see. But I also found some things that I forgot that I had, and I was telling you about this earlier.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, ready for it?
What
you ready
is
for
it?
Yep.
You ready for it?
Oh,
Wow.
I totally forgot
Dang.
I had this. Has the sword too.
dude.
Wow.
Holy moly.
Never been opened, by the way.
That's so cool.
Never removed from box.
Never removed. No, it hasn't. Never removed from box.
Nice.
Where did you find it?
Dang.
You know what? I didn't find it. This
Baby
is what
toys.
happens. This is what happens when you have an understanding lady friend who knows that you're having a bad day one day and decide to cheer you up.
Aww.
And this was about the time that Tenchi Muyo was on was it Adult Swim, and it was our favorite. We actually watched it together.
Oh,
and,
nice.
Yeah, and so she was just like, "Oh, I hope this will cheer you up." I'm like, "Thank for it." And I picked
Now
it.
it's no longer new in box. No.
And she gave it to me, and she was just like, I hope this makes you feel better after having that crappy day that you've had, and I just kind of went, yes.
I love
That's
Tenchi.
cool.
So
Tenchi loves you.
that new fanfic.
Yeah.
So that is what I've learned. That is what I've learned. Unfortunately, fire was not involved this week.
Awesome. Yes. That's a relief. All right. Thank you all so much. As always, this is great. Have a great week, all. See you next week for the next two episodes of Serial Experiments Lain. Bye.
It'll be a happy fun time.
Definitely.
Johnny.
Yes,